Do you ever look at your shelves and realize that some distilleries are being accumulated a bit quicker than others? Is this something that's always happened along your whiskey journey, or are there a few distilleries there that you seem to have come onto a wee bit more recently? Maybe that's got a lot to do with the producer rather than you. Maybe they've brought a lot more range. Maybe they've improved their price and their quality proposition. Maybe the liquid has just got a lot better. I think there are some distilleries out there that are like that, and I think it would be nice to focus on those distilleries. But obviously, there are distilleries that are going backwards as well, so we might spend just a wee bit of time talking about one of those too. But tonight we're gonna focus on celebrating distilleries that we can consider have had something of a renaissance. I'm looking forward to it as always, and I'll see you all in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? Welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to another vPub. Hope you're all sitting in a comfortable spot, and I hope you've got something nice in the glass. I don't have anything in the glass yet. I was away last week, as you know. Thank you very much for letting me have a wee bit of time off last week. There was no vPub, there was no Thursday night session, I don't think. But I had a wonderful time. Obviously, it was the end of May, so it's your kind of festival season, right? We're at the end of May, we've got Campbelltown Malts Festival, and that runs straight into Fisheel over on Isla. That's happening right now. And yeah, it's that time of year. You know, the midges are out. It must be May already, and it must be festival season. I had a fantastic time, I really did. However, I do have to be honest with everyone. I did come back and I'd planned this in advance. Honestly, you know, it's not crazy. And if you're going to go away and spend 4 days, right, at the Campbelltown Malts Festival drinking whiskey every day, you're going to put a bit of fire break immediately after you return. But I did come back with a wee bit of whiskey fatigue, and it happens to us all. You're just a bit whiskied out. The last thing you wanted to do was pour yourself a dram when you get back from the Campbelltown Malts Festival. So that means that since I came back on Sunday, so it was Saturday was my last dram. Let's get something in the glass, and it can be my first dram. What we're going to have, I'm going to have this thing here. And I might be giving away one of the distilleries I'm going to speak about, but that's okay. I'm going to get the first dram in the glass. What is that, 5 days? 5 days since a dram? And I know that I'm ready for this. I know that I'm in the mood for it because I was in the mood for a dram last night, and I was in the mood for a dram on Tuesday night. But I decided to hold off and wait until I was hanging out with you guys. I think it's just good to put a wee kind of fire break in there. So I've got my first dram in the glass tonight to welcome all of you. I've got 3 glasses here, and then another 2 glasses over here. I've got 5 glasses, so I know what I'm going to be sipping with you tonight. It is a school night for me. I've got work and everything tomorrow, regular day tomorrow, so just going to be careful what I pour beyond this. However, I've been looking forward to this one. I've been looking forward to raising a glass to you all, to welcome you back. Welcome to another Thursday night. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. And very nice it noses indeed. Slantia. Good. Good indeed. Good stuff. So yes, I got back on Saturday after a fantastic few days. For those of you that I was able to meet in Campbelltown, even a few of you, I know it was so brief, right? It was just kind of passing each other or something, quick handshake and a hello, and everybody's running to be somewhere, to do something, one of the range tastings, or going off to visit one of their distilleries, or going off to eat is the sensible thing. But I managed to meet a hell of a lot of you in a very small space of time, so it's a really quite efficient thing for me to do. So it was a fantastic, wonderful time, full of great whiskies. But as usual, you come back just loving the connection, the community, the people, the fantastic whiskey folk. And in that respect, it was an absolute pleasure. Got a lot of reflection on my screen tonight. Let's turn that a wee bit and see if we can help that a bit. Danny Hebbington's in. Good to see you again, Danny. I hope you're keeping well, buddy. He's celebrating being a barfly for 40 months. He's saying evening all back on the terra firma for a bit. Wonderful to have you back, Danny. Hope you're sitting comfortable, my friend. And thanks for your support over the 40 months. Highland Hamish as well. Good to see you, buddy. How you keeping, buddy? He's celebrating being a barfly for 48 months. Aquavite greetings from Inverness. Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're keeping well. So Hamish and Danny are both barflies, and they've clicked the membership button inside YouTube here, and they keep all the content absolutely ad-free, which is a nice wee bonus for everyone, I think. But they also get these wee loyalty badges celebrating being a supporter for X amount of months. They've both got pink barflies and lots of channel-themed emoji too. Thank you guys for your support. It's wonderful to have you here. And my pal David Hong is in. He has bought me a wee dram, and he's made a comment tonight as well to say, welcome back, my friend, and hope all is well. Yes, David, I'm doing very, very well indeed, my friend. It's fantastic to be back with you all, feeling tip-top again after a tumultuous, health-wise, few weeks, just bugs and things going around. Quite a lot of you in already. Fantastic to have you here. Fantastic to have the support, despite the fact that it's summertime, right? I'm looking forward to hanging out with you all tonight. So before I jump in, there's a dram just come in from Whiskey Lovers Society. Yeah, it's a peer YouTube channel creator there. He's over in Belgium. And I feel like I always get your name wrong. It's Gerhard. Buddy, it's good to see you. I hope you're still doing things on the YouTube channel there, and it's nice to have you in here. He's saying, small dram, cheers. Thank you, buddy. Here's to David Hong, and here's to Whiskey Lovers Society, since I've forgotten your name again, buddy. Cheers to you both. Cheers. And Julian Rickman celebrating being a barfly for 36 months, saying good to be back in the vPub. Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it too. I did miss you all. It's kind of weird recognizing that it's a Thursday night and you're just kind of somewhere else having fun. But last week I was out with Rolfie, I was out with Sebi and Scott. We were sharing a house together, so we had lots of distractions and lots of fun and lots of whiskey. What was quite amazing to me, despite the fact that we'd taken some whiskey to the house, lots of samples and things like that, some really, really nice whiskies, is because we'd enjoyed so much whiskey during the day, we were having very little whiskey at night. And I realized that maybe, you couldn't say at any point that we paced ourselves. We were just kind of following our mood, kind of following the moment. But I started to feel towards the end of the week that fire break that I'd planned, that kind of break after coming back, was going to be really quite needed. And I don't just mean from a consumption, from a volume perspective, from the way it was making me feel or whatever. It's that way where you want to kind of revitalize, to regenerate your love and your desire for whiskey from a flavor perspective. You want to sit and nose the glass and just enjoy what a creation whiskey is. You want to taste the whiskey, and when you taste it, you want to actually taste it. You want to feel like it is that wonderful thing. And I think that from time to time, I always advocate balance over big breaks and then hitting it hard and then a break and hitting it hard. For me, it tends to work a wee bit better if I just watch my pacing and balance that a wee bit more. But it's not one size fits all. It's different for everyone. That said, I've been looking forward to getting back and hanging out with you tonight. And it kind of fits that idea of taking a break and then coming back, that kind of renaissance, that regenerative thing. It's a bit clumsy, but I'm going to try and suggest that that's kind of what forced the concept of the vPub tonight. That and the inspiration from one particular release that I'm going to share with you at the end of tonight. Well, it's a very generous donation that's come in from Marco Vucic. I'm not Marco, I'm probably making a right mess of your name, my friend. But you've brought me a generous dram with no comment. You're able to make a wee comment there as well, Marco. You've joined the Barflies as well, and you're supporting me as a Barfly, so that's super generous of you, buddy. Is that South African currency? Cheers to you. RSD, what currency is that? So before we get started, before we get talking about Renaissance, why I've picked this theme, talking about getting back into whiskey again, let's do what we always do on a Thursday night and jump into the lounge while you're all getting settled, pulling up your your bar stools and putting your feet up and getting your drams poured, and try and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Whiskey with Molly's, and of course you are, buddy. Good to see you. I'll be in the wee tune with Whiskey Novice and Whiskey Liberation Front a week today, and I can't wait. Fantastic. Wonder if there's any opportunity for us to make a wee hookup. Are you coming through Glasgow? That would be great to see you. You'll have a terrific time with two cracking guys. That's Lee J and Jim, Whiskey Novice, of course. Rick Johnson's here as well. Cheers from San Francisco, Roy. And all you wonderful barflies, glad to be joining during festival season and wish I was there with you. Good to have you, Rick, as always. You are with us. You are with us. You might be 8 hours away, but you're with us. Stevie O is saying, great to be here joining all the mad barflies. Hope the wee tune was good. Stevie, it was wonderful. It was belly laughs, fantastic whiskey, and even better folk. Whiskey Games Matt Bishop is saying, both the Campbelltown and Isle of festivals looked amazing. From over here on the East Coast, one day I'll plan a visit. I think you should, but you've got to do it when you're in the mood, definitely. And accommodation's difficult, and it's now taken, if you're going to Fisheel, Campbelltown Malts Festival, you've kind of got to book months longer than that in advance. We tried in January and we struggled for accommodation. Danny Keenan is saying, good evening, Roy. Looking forward to this, and congrats to our very own Doodle the Dram on the new Ardna artwork. You might see me mention that a wee bit later tonight, Danny. Stay tuned. For those of you willing to hang around for a wee bit of brutality towards the end of tonight, you might see some mention of that new artwork, let's say. Max Kreitner is saying, good evening, my friend. Greetings from Christina as well. Finishing a public holiday with a vPub and a dram. Perfect. Of course, it's been a holiday for you over there, Max. Here's a wee glass for a wee day off. It's a wee bonus. I hope you've got tomorrow off as well for you and Christina, buddy. And celebrating your recent anniversary too. Cheers to you both. Drinks Whiskey, good to see you in, buddy. How are you keeping? He's celebrating being a barfly for the last 9 months. He's saying, even and all, hope the drams have been good to you. They have indeed. I wonder, is there still content going out there from Drinks Whiskey channel? It's good to welcome you in here, buddy. It's always nice to have you. Multi Mission is saying, well, next year you can all crash the Hellses when doing Campbelltown Whiskey Festival. I wonder how far Helen is away. And that's a point. I think she's just a wee bit out of town. We were out of town. We were in Carradale this year. Stephen Wilson is saying, evening, Aquaviti and fellow barflies. He's bought me a generous dram as well. Stephen Wilson, thank you very, very much, my friend. I'm trying to remember. The currency tells me that you're in Canada. Stephen, I hope I've welcomed you before. I'm pretty sure I have, because that's a gold barfly that you've got there. Good to have you in, fella. Cheers. This is tasting fantastic. Whiskey Weekend Dram is saying Aquaviti. So last weekend I opened a Springbank cage bottle from last year's trip. Time to enjoy a dram tonight. I did bring a cage bottle souvenir home. I bet you all will be able to guess what I picked up. I picked up what we jokingly refer to as Peak Springbank, right? It's I think it was our Sean at the Glasgow Whisky Club that coined it's Peak Springbank, somewhere between 10 and 15 years old. Ex-bourbon. That's what I picked up. I was very, very fortunate. Matt is saying, oh, I just picked that one up as I scrolled back up, buddy. I'll scroll up a wee bit more to see who I've missed. Bruno Martins is saying a nice theme again, Roy Aquaviti. Greetings from Lisbon. Good to see you in, Bruno. And it was nice to see you hanging out with Seb the other night. Sorry, I couldn't join you even for a brief moment, but it's wonderful to get the feedback. It's kind of nice to see all these barflies, whether it's in Arizona, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in Lisbon, whether it's Germany, Austria, but Belgium, all over the place. Different groups of barflies meeting up together and having fun little sessions. Hoyt Hempel is saying, midgies, I was trying to suppress that memory. The midgies are out again, buddy. They are here, and they were there in Campbelltown for a wee bit as well. Not so much in the town itself, but certainly in the evening up at the accommodation, it was difficult to step outside. Daisy is saying, evening, Roy and barflies. Good to see you, Daisy. Daisy in the Netherlands. It's always wonderful to welcome her in. Hope you're doing well. Hope everything's going great for you, and hope to see you soon. Matthew Burton is saying, good to meet you briefly in Campbelltown. Matthew Burton, would you have introduced yourself as Matt? I wonder, trying to remember the moment, trying to put the face to the name, and you're a barfly as well. I'm so sorry that I've forgotten already. It was a dizzy time. There was meeting so many people. It was great, great, great fun. Rob Smith is here. Good evening, barflies. Hope you're all doing well. I'm Rob. Nice to see you in, buddy. Always nice to welcome you here. Harrow's welcoming me back, and Jerry Miller is saying hello and good evening, Roy. I'll try to do my best to keep up with the chat tonight. It's just me, myself, and I and you lot, so it should be... I mean, I really, really had a lot of fun 2 weeks ago with Roddy, Stefan, and Ian in here, doing that blind challenge, doing the mystery malt thing, all of it. I think it just reminded me how much I love having these kind of community challenges and this kind of community gamification from time to time. This year, I've been focusing more on solo vPub content just to suit me and suit myself. But I was reminded during that session that it's fun to mix it up from time to time. So there's plans afoot to get an on-location vPub going again, to get more guests involved and to feature more of the community fun of everything. First, Phil Whiskies here from New Zealand. Phil, so good to have you in, buddy. Good to have you here. He's saying, hey, everyone, hope you're well, Aquavite. He's also a Barfly supporter too. So raise a wee glass to one of the best whiskey channels out there. I hope things are going well for you, Phil. I hope things are still going strong. Cracking content, buddy, and it's nice to have you and hanging out with us. Good morning, first Phil. And Matthew's saying, yeah, I think I did introduce myself as Matt. It was me that gave you the Inchgour mystery malt sample. I remember it now. Thank you very, very much. That was generous of you to bring it along. You might remember I poured that and shared that in the moment at that time. And what I did is I kept that little plastic 5ml bottle. And when there was a nice dram at any of the tastings I went to, rather than leave it for it to end up in the spittoon or whatever, I was using your wee bottle to bring the nice dram and to smuggle it out of the tasting. So it was a nice wee thing for you to do, Matt. It was nice to have met you. Thanks for coming up and saying hello. Right, let's get on with things. How are we doing for time? I've got plenty of time tonight. Like I say, it's a school day for me tomorrow. I'm hit, as we say in Scotland. So we're going to try... We're never going to manage a 2-hour vPub. Remember the old days when we used to target those? But we're going to try and keep things a wee bit neat tonight, and I hope you don't mind that too much. With that in mind, I've gone for 3 examples of Renaissance distilleries. Distilleries, what do I mean by Renaissance? It's not like Glengyle, who have come back on stream, have been pulled back from oblivion. They were just for almost 75 years or 80 years or something. Glengyle was closed for. So that's a real story of Renaissance, Just up the road from Glengyle, we've got Glen Scotia as well. It's been plugging away in the background and putting product out there. But we see real fortification and Renaissance happening at Glen Scotia as well. We've seen Renaissance happening at Tomatin and bringing on new products and focused on single malt and all of that type of stuff. We've seen Renaissance at Glencadam, where they've done much the same, widening their core portfolio offering. We've seen Renaissance right across the board. What I'm talking about tonight is not necessarily things that have been reopened again, Broras, Port Ellens, Glengyles. What I'm focusing on is producers that have always been there. For as long as single malt has been a thing, they've been putting out an official core release of some description somewhere in the world at some point in time. But for whatever reason, in the past, they were largely ignored. And probably with good reason, probably because it was a bit insipid, a bit vanilla, maybe the quality wasn't there, maybe it was a mass market focused whiskey, and they were just trying a kind of stack them high and sell them cheap type a supermarket multiples type philosophy, all of that stuff. That would mean that we tend to, as enthusiasts, quickly move past that style of whiskey. It's not to do with being a snob or anything, because we are trying those whiskies and we're kind of leaving them behind. However, these Renaissance distilleries that I'm going to feature tonight all have one thing in common. The core ranges that they had in the past have now today, in 2025, and for some years now, for all of them, most of them, there's one at the end that's just brand new, Renaissance-wise. They've managed to significantly improve their core range offering over what they offered in the past, to the point that if they are not already being enjoyed by enthusiasts today, I hope that they are, then I would like to kind of push a little further in order to bring these distilleries back onto your radar and say, look, these are out there. It's not too expensive. It's affordable. and I can pretty much guarantee you a very good experience. How have they managed that renaissance? Without exception, all three distilleries that I'm going to feature tonight have focused, I think, on what they do very, very well. They've not tried to be all things to all people. They've not tried to give a product out there for every style of whiskey that can be made. They've just realized what they do very, very well, and they've used that as the stake in the ground. They've used that as their core, as the backbone, and then they've branched off from there. In some respects, they've moved away from chill filtering and adding caramel colouring and moving closer towards trying to focus more on natural presentation, a kind of evolution towards integrity and quality. All of these types of things, and of course keeping things affordable and keeping things available, means that they start to fall on the radar of the enthusiast. If they start to fall on the radar of the enthusiast, somebody out there is picking them up, somebody's buying them. And because we're enthusiasts and because we're online, or because we meet up in our clubs or with our friends in our wee whiskey groups or whatever it is, we start the chatter, don't we? Start to talk about it. And sometimes these things build. The chatter builds. More and more people get to know about it. More and more people are willing to spend a wee bit of money in picking up these word of mouth recommendations. And more people start to chatter, and it builds from that side. This is that kind of organic grassroots reputation building, the type of thing that maybe all whiskey once upon a time would have relied upon. These days, we see a lot of kind of top-down agency type professional marketing programs, large-scale things, products that are focused on people that are perhaps more kind of casual in their whiskey consumption than we are as enthusiasts. And it's all fine, and there's a space for it all. But what we focus on, the way we consume whiskey, tends to be the stuff that we hear about as being good, and we trust the word of mouth, we trust the reviews, that type of thing. And then we are willing to try it ourselves. Once we get that buy-in, once we agree, once we realize that it is good, we start to then repeat that. So the one that I've poured tonight, I'm going to kick off with, has been a perfect example of that. Tim Powell's is in. Good to see you, Tim. He's saying, even around the barflies, better late than never. Cheers all. Always good to welcome you, Tim. There's no such thing as late to the vPub. For those of you that are joining in live, I love it. Thank you very much for hanging out with me on a Thursday night. And for those of you that are picking this up on the replay, I'm just every bit as grateful for that. Thank you. Multi-mission in Belgium. Good to see you, Menno. Too soon to speak of Renaissance, but quite curious what Elixir will do with Tormore Aquavitae. Lots and lots of the barflies live inside my head. You might hear me mention a little bit of Tormore later. Thomas Jones Aquavitae just poured a Hyde 8-year-old single grain cask strength. How's it going down, Thomas? Are you enjoying it? An 8-year-old cask strength. Now, you need to tell me a wee bit about that. Is that their own or is that sourced? Let me know how it's going. David Owen is saying, evening. Roy, could Fettercairn be included in this topic? Having the 16-year-old third release tonight. Pedro is saying, good evening, Aquavitae and barflies. Pedro in Brazil, it's always wonderful to have you. So David Owen, once more, the barflies do live inside my head. Or maybe Roy's becoming a dull boy and I'm getting just a wee bit too predictable. What's in the glass tonight is exactly that, David. This is Fettercairn. There was a time in the past that I would have had old bottles of Fettercairn, Fask and Fjord. They weren't too expensive. Kind of supermarket presentation type whiskies. Nothing that made me want to go back and buy any more Fettercairn whiskies. They were low ABV, they were caramel colour added, they were certainly chill filtered. All of those things that is very whiskey and mass market whiskey. But you know what I talk about on the vPub, malt whiskey doesn't like being handled like that. It protests against that. You know, if you drop the ABV down, you're going to have issues with clouding, right? You know, That means you're going to be forced then to chill filter it, which means you're going to get a knock-on effect. Flavour, certainly, definitely mouthfeel and texture. You're going to have that an issue. You're maybe going to lose some colour there too. So the thing that was maybe already pale, you were going to add a bit of caramel colourant, maybe you're going to have to add a wee bit more. You know, malt whiskey is telling us that it doesn't like being bottled at 40% ABV. It's just, we've got to kind of crowbar it into something else. 40%, 43% ABV, for me, is always going to fit better with blends. There are ways you can put out lower ABV whiskies, unchill filtered and things like that, but it's risky. Of course it's risky. For me, malt whiskey for natural presentation, 46% and above typically. If you can do 48, all the better. 50%, all the better still. And allow us to add our own water when and where we would like to. And of course, keep it lovely and naturally coloured. Let me tell you that Fettercairn once upon a time was not naturally coloured. But these days, it absolutely is. I thought it was the 16 that I poured, but it isn't. It was one of the warehouse editions. I've got the 16 here. 16 is just a wee bit darker. This is also the third release, David. I also believe the third release to be the best. There's not much difference between second and third. I would say that the first release is something to be avoided. There's not a lot of it around there now. Watch out for it. It tends to be in a litre bottle. It's very, very dark. I wonder if you'd forgive me. I should just go and grab it from the shelf because I want you to see this. I know I've featured it in the vPub before, but if we talk about Renaissance and moving in the right direction, I think we need to draw attention to this. Please chat amongst yourselves for a few seconds. There we go. I've grabbed the first release of Fettercairn 16, and here it is here. It's a litre bottle, as I say. Despite me complaining about it, you can see I've managed to get through half a litre of this stuff. But I tend to use this as quite an interesting part of an interesting stunt, because what I do is I pour it against a newer Fettercairn 16-year-old releases. Now you can quite clearly see the difference in colour between these two bottles. I bought this once. I struggle with it. I don't enjoy this whiskey. I'm suspicious of the amount of caramel colourant that's involved here. I know there's a bit of chocolate malt and things like that, but that's not where the colour's coming from in this whiskey. I think that this was not particularly naturally presented. The mouthfeel is a little bit flat. There's far less vibrance there. But the biggest thing for me here is that when I want to enjoy Fettercairn, I'm looking for vibrant, bright, springtime, summertime, mid-G season, you might say, whiskies. That's what Fettercairn are fantastic at producing. It's really a wonderful thing that they do. That tropicality that they have there is something to be harnessed, something to be embraced. This 16-year-old I purchased this year. This is still available, the third release. I don't know how much I paid for this, but it's not expensive for a 16-year-old in 20 to 25 terms. I think I paid somewhere in the order of 70 quid for this. And I've seen it on sale a couple of times too, so you can pick it up a wee bit cheaper, depending on where you are, of course. But this actually tells us, I don't remember where it tells us on this, it might be on the box, but they did actually tell us a finely balanced marriage of Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez and ex-bourbon casks, but we know this one to be non-chill filtered and natural colour. What difference does that make? Well, I'm just about to pour another glass, which is maybe a wee bit of a mistake, but this Fettercairn 16 tastes nothing like those whiskies that are struggled to get through the Fettercairns of the past, the Fask and the Fjord. They still had the unicorn branding on it, but it didn't look anything like this. This bottle is much more, it's kind of reminiscent of the Wireworks bottle. Maybe a bit heavy, for you could do with a lighter bottle, I think, in modern terms. But there's a nice quality, a nice heft, and a nice weight to this bottle, despite this being the 70 cl. The litre is just far too big. It's a big, hefty thing. But it's obviously was designed for global travel retail. I think this was released 2020 during the pandemic, so it ended up being a litre bottle that was available on the wider market. But it's a nice bottle. It's a nice thing. It's a pretty thing. It's very whiskey themed as well. The aesthetics are very on point. But all of that is just fluff, isn't it? What we really want, there's a depth to this as well. So the vibrance and the tropicality is absolutely there. This is stone fruit and peachy and pineapple, sweet orchard fruit, sweet apple, a floral element too. Everything is top note. Everything is sparkly and light and vibrant. There is a biscuity, malty note there, but it's quite a kind of sweet, creamy thing. But also what we've got here is just a wee bit of richness, a wee bit of depth to it as well, despite being quite a light whiskey. Just hints a wee bit at its age. I think 16-year-old is obviously a very good sweet spot age for a malt whiskey. Cheers. Lovely. Texture is there. It's got the nice vibrance, nice sparkle on the palate. Lots of fruit, very fruit forward whiskey, a little bit of acidity and bitterness on the finish. Always love that. A little bit of dryness on the finish too. Maybe some of those kind of sherry casks maybe involved in that, but not overly. It's not kind of, it doesn't go too acidic or too bitter. It's just a nice fruity single malt whiskey. I want you to maybe, and this doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work for everyone, but it works for me. And I touched upon it at the start of the stream tonight, is that if we look at our shelves, you know, sometimes it's not obvious to us, it's not apparent to us about the whiskies that we're actually connecting with. So I would have to go back to maybe 2019, early 2020. I had zero Fettercairn on the shelf. And if I did have any Fettercairn, it was probably a Fettercairn from an independent. There was no official Fettercairns. Like I say, I didn't want to go back. If I look over at my shelves today, I've got, and I've picked a few of them off the shelf. Like I say, I had to go back for that 16-year-old, but I've got the 14-year-old on the shelf. There's a fantastic wee light, fruity, gorgeous whiskey. This is almost all ex-bourbon, I think. This is 46% ABV, this one, 14 years old. This is travel retail. But if you visit the distillery like I did, you can pick this up at the distillery. I've got the Warehouse series. This is the Warehouse 2 Batch 4, which is the weakest release, I would say. Warehouse 14 Batch 1, I think I've got. There's the other one I've got here. I want to put in my glass. Maybe not. I think maybe it was the other one I put in the glass. This is Warehouse 2, which is Batch 3 of Warehouse 2. This is a fantastic one. And like I say, these two 16s, and I've got one or two others over there as well. Suddenly, you look at the wee section where I keep the Fettercairns, and there's suddenly lots of wee unicorns sitting on the shelf. Lots of that Fettercairn official branding. And I'm struck by that and thinking that, and that very small amount of time, I've gone from really not bothering about Fettercairn, you could argue actively avoiding it, to a point where I've got lots of them on the shelf. The 12-year-old is over there. It's at 40% ABV, and I think it suffers from that. I'm sorry to say it really does, but it's got its place, and it's trying to do something to a wider market, and it's not really pointed at me, the 12-year-old. So that's fine, and I think it's going to be a theme tonight. We talk about a product that's pointing at the mass market and products that are pointing at everyone else. Depending on how many whiskies that you have on the shelf, if some of you just have a handful of whiskies, if some of you just have maybe a dozen or so, And maybe it's not obvious that that's happening, but once you start to over accumulate, you start to chase flavor, and that means that you don't tend to drink and rinse it through the bottle. You're replacing before you're finishing the whiskey that you've got in hand, and that accumulation betrays habits, like it does for me. And it was very easy for me to pick the 3 distilleries I'm going to share with you tonight just by looking at my shelves. It was surprising to me, until I thought about it, that I've gone from having 0 Fettercairn to lots of Fettercairn. I'm loving it. Why do we think there's been a renaissance there? There's a theme tonight. The 3 distilleries are more or less the same size. They've got kind of different histories, but they're there for a similar purpose, or historically, they've all been there for a similar purpose, and you'll see that theme start to emerge. But in recent times, I put it to you, and I'm guessing here, if I have permission to just guess and just soapbox, my gut feel is that there's specific people involved that's helping to change the direction a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean betraying the market that they've been building for years. They still have to try and support that. But they're looking at this thing and saying, can't it be better? Can't it be both? Can't we have things that can take care and sate the mass market and have all the needs that they have? High volume, attractive price, smooth, easy drinking, soft ABVs, that type of thing. And can't we have products out there that can really get enthusiasts excited and really show off what we actually make? Show off our house style or our house styles. Show off the investment that we've put into wood in recent years. Show off the investment that we've put into production side of things to make the best whiskey we can. It's a competitive place out there, so it's not always about price. We'll get talking about price a wee bit later when we talk about the distillery that I think's gone backwards. And I think that down to these individuals or small teams or individual characters, however it may be, that's involved behind the scenes, I think that starts to betray itself in the product. We start to taste that somebody is doing a much better job. One of my favourite styles of whiskey is a fruity tropical whiskey. I love the stuff. I really love it. And it doesn't have to be old. We're not talking necessarily the tropicality that comes with things that's been left alone in a refill bourbon cask for 3 decades. We're talking about the tropicality that can be harnessed in the spirit. So you can taste it at 3 years old and 5 years old and 8 years old and 10 and 12 and 16 years old. It's intrinsic. It's part of the style of the whiskey. It doesn't really matter the age. Some casks will change it. Some casks will cover it. Some casks will enhance it. Ex-bourbon cask for me, especially if there's some refill in the mix, tends to enhance that for me. I love it. So when I stumble across a distillery that is moving in the right direction and giving me the product at a fair price and bringing that style, sorry, you're going to hear me shouting about it. And I know it's not the first time you've heard me shouting about modern takes of Fettercairn. Have any of you managed any or tried any of the more recent warehouse editions, more recent age statements? The 16-year-old is 46.4% ABV, I think, 46.4, 46 for that 14-year-old. The warehouse releases tend to be higher ABVs into the 50s. It's only really some of the, there's 22-year-old Fettercairn and 28-year-old Fettercairn, unaffordable, unobtainium stuff for us. I'm not interested in that. There's also stuff at the lower end. The 12-year-old, as I've already mentioned, at 40% ABV and things, that's fairly cheap at 40 to 50 pounds, that type of... I'm in the middle section here. I'm in the area from about the 50 pounds mark up to about 80, 85 pounds. That's the envelope that I'm playing in. And in that area, the specs and the quality is playing very well and competing very well with its peers. Mel is saying, good evening, Barflies, good evening, Aquavite. A little late at the party, but I'll sit down and enjoy a nice Ardbeg. Fantastic, Mel. You're raising a wee glass for Fashil, getting into the spirit of things. Nice to welcome you, Mel. I hope you're well. Pedro is saying second release is better than third, but it's still very nice. It's interesting. I've bought, I tried to buy a second of the second, but missed it, ended up buying the third and managed to rinse the third. And I've just recently, earlier this year, bought another bottle of the third release, and I'm very, very happy with it. I'm going to give you that one, Pedro, because I can't really recall ever sitting down. I probably did it live on a vPub, right enough. I can't ever recall sitting down and trying the second against the third release. What's amazing about the modern releases of Fettercairn is that all that detail is on the label. The warehouse releases have the batch numbers on it, right? The 16-year-olds have which release it is, first, second, third. Gordon Burniston is here. Had a quite amazing Fettercairn experience last month, courtesy of my wife, who bid on a charity auction, a tour and a warehouse tasting with Greg Glass, followed by an amazing blending session aquavitae. You've mentioned the fella that I think is at least partly responsible for some of this renaissance at that White and Mackay distillery. Trying to pick up the orange. Brian Stormont is here. Good to see you, Brian. How are you keeping? He's saying toured Fettercairn 2 weeks ago and got the chance to try the 12, the 16 and the 18. The 18 might be in the Scottish Oak expression, if I recall well, which makes it a bit pricey because of the Scottish Oak thing, as well as the distillery edition, all of which were impressive. Brian, I'm very glad that you got a hold of it. And I'm glad that you're in here chiming in as well. And it's not just me talking about this stuff. I've got no skin in this game. I don't really know anyone at White and Mackay. I don't really know Greg Glass. I don't really know any of the team. I don't know anyone at Fettercairn. I'm here talking about my experience with the whiskey based on me spending my own money on the stuff. Excessively so, now that I've admitted that I've got a collection going on, but also replacing bottles when they disappear. That's one of the biggest compliments I think you can pay to a whiskey when it disappears and you think, I'm going to miss this. I want it back on the shelf again. Gerben is saying, yes, after visiting Fettercairn, I did buy the 16, the 18, and the Warehouse 2 batch 3. So, Gerben, that's good. You're making me feel better about my excessiveness. Well done to you. And I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Often when we're visiting the distillery, we can get caught up in the moment and things like that. But it's nice, I suppose, me sitting here in the kind of cold, light of day type moments when I'm just sitting on my own with the glass and saying, no, this is really good whiskey. Just as it jumps. So sorry, Christoph is saying, will Glenturret be on the list, I wonder? There is no Glenturret on the list this time around. That's not to say that it might not be in the future. Let's keep an eye on how things are going at Glenturret. I think that this is the type of theme that could, just because of the sheer amount of distilleries that are making a positive direction progress, it could become a wee bit of a series, Christoph. Good to have you. Falscraft Class, good to see you, buddy. Being still in Ireland, a Porter Tullamore distillery exclusive, re-emerging from Middleton, also a Renaissance story. Aye, good. However tenuous the link is, the most important thing here, class, is that you're here hanging out with us in the vPub, live or on the replay, buddy. I hope the trip in Ireland is still going very, very well for you. Feels like you've been there for a while now. Whiskey Games Matt is saying, Aquavitae, there's a Thompson Brothers Fettercairn bottling that I'm trying to get hold of. Well, if the Thompson Brothers have picked it, I'm sure it'll be a cracker, but it'd be interesting to see. I'm sure that they would probably pick something that might be able to harness that lovely tropicality. Celebrated its 200-year anniversary last year. Quite an amazing thing. And an 1824 distillery, one of the distilleries that appeared right after the Licensing Act, or the Excise Act, sorry. And if we look at capacity, I think Fettercairn's pretty large. I think it's 2 or 3 million. Let's have a wee look at the always on hand companion. It never leaves this desk, or this particular copy of it doesn't. I've got one upstairs as well. I've got one I carry in my backpack too. Fettercairn. So the Malt Whisky Yearbook is suggesting 2.2 million litres capacity. So we can probably imagine that they're running somewhere between about half that and the 2 million, something about that order. But the focus of Fettercairn is not single malt whisky. The focus of Fettercairn and all three distilleries that I'm going to be speaking about tonight has always been on providing malt for blended purposes. So I think that when you go into that space and when you're trying to carve out a single malt presence and a good quality single malt, as well as a single malt that can be a mass market product, and all of these challenges that the product development teams have, I think it can be very difficult. I think it can be tricky, because what you want in a single malt is not always the same thing that you want in a component for a blend. You want the single malt to absolutely shine on its own. You want it to be the peak, the pinnacle, the best it can be. You want to have it coming from the best casks. Whereas when you're making a malt whiskey to go into a blend, there's a good chance that you're going to be filling into older wood. There's a good chance that you're going to be filling that wood at a higher ABV. The lower the ABV that you fill at, the more expensive it is in wood. There's lots of things that can happen in the decision-making process that means that the whiskey that ends up intended for blends can often be a little bit different from the whiskey that goes out to single malt. So it ends up in the hands of someone at some point in time, blender, distiller, product development team, whoever it is, that've got to try and create a product and then try and work out ways to consistently bring that product. What I would like to say, though, is that we as enthusiasts understand the concept of batch variation. We understand that it changes from time to time, changes each batch. It's a batch-made product that's matured in different places, in different wood, at different times, for different lengths of time, all of these things. Fettercairn have decided that for the majority, the warehouse releases, the 16-year-old, they're putting on there, they're declaring the batch details. And at no point, I think, there's no way that you're put off. This looks exactly the same as batch 2. This is batch 3, or the third release, as they're calling it. But look, it's a very tiny little mention there. Third release, 2022. This one should say first release 2019, I think, 2020. First release 2020, yeah, of course, the COVID year, yeah. Now, I don't think that that is going to necessarily be a difficult thing for anyone, whether you're a casual whiskey drinker, mass market drinker, or a dedicated enthusiast. These are just very, very simple concepts to pick up. So nobody is being put off by too much information or too much detail on the label. The label doesn't need to be a lab sample label in order to convey some transparency. I think that Fettercairn have been able to pull that off in recent times, and I think that a lot of the producers out there that want to try and make progress to being spoken about in much more positive terms and things like that, because they know that the whiskey that they make is much better than that's often bottled and sold, I think that they would do well to remember the term, can't it be both? You know, can't we do something that can show and best display what we actually make? That's what I think has made Fettercairn a renaissance distillery. They've dialed right into that tropicality, that fruit-forward spirit, the stone fruit, the light sweet orchard, the lovely kind of top note, the lovely floral sparkle at the top, and they've managed to get that into a bottle. I hope there's lots more of it. I really, really do. 2022 is the last time we saw a release of the 16-year-old, but I understand why there's still a lot more of it out there. There's still a lot of it sitting on the shelf still. If you can pick that up at a good price, you might be genuinely, pleasantly surprised how fantastic a whiskey that is. Especially if that style of whiskey is what you enjoy. Peter Lee is in. He's saying, is that a Thompson Brothers with the unicorn? If it's got a unicorn on it, I would suggest that they are absolutely talking about Fettercairn. But I would imagine if they're talking about Fettercairn, they wouldn't be doing it from it. It wouldn't be like a secret Highland distillery. I think that most Fettercairn is sold. I think they don't really put any demands. I think most independent Fettercairn is also sold as Fettercairn, although I might be wrong with that. If it's a secret Highland, but it's got a unicorn on the bottle, Peter, I'm not familiar with that bottling from Thompson Brothers, but I would imagine that's a direct nod right at Fettercairn. Good to have you in, Peter. Gordon Burniston is saying, you mentioned the Fettercairn bottle earlier. quite heavy and indeed fluff, but was news to me that the design echoes the infamous cooling ring. So that's one of the things I mentioned, and I don't know how much of a difference it actually makes. If you had a few distilleries out there that use the cooling ring right, you'd be able to compare them or whatever, I don't know. But there's lots of things in the production process that's going to influence the whiskey. But one of the amazing things, to cool the copper at Fettercairn, they've got a cooling ring around the top of the neck that trickles cool water down the copper. It's absolutely unique. No other distillery has it. And I think that that's exactly what this design, Gordon, thank you very much for prompting me and pointing that out, is supposed to recall. So you can see there's a ring around here at the top, and then the water, the embossed glass, or debossed glass, would that be? Embossed, debossed, whatever. It kind of does look like liquid spilling down the side. Nice bottle. A wee bit heavy, but a very nice bottle. Harrow is saying, have a little sip of the second release, a bit of PX cast in there, I think, some raisins. Whiskey Malt Content. Now, I did get to meet you. How are you doing, buddy? It's fantastic to see you in here. And he's saying, where to click to join the Barflies. I would suggest to you, buddy, that if you are tuning in through an Apple device on iOS, you're not going to have the button, because Apple want you to do everything through their platform. They want you to pay everything through the it's just Apple are, for reasons that my patrons know very, very well, they've caused me lots of scares in recent times. It's alleviated a little bit right now. But you can't do it through Apple or an iOS device. If you're on an Android device, or if you're tuning in on a desktop, a laptop, what have you, you just click on the join button underneath the video here on YouTube, and then you get the option to join for $1.99 a month, $1.99, €1.99, £1.99, whatever your currency is. And if you're not a patron member, Mark, I think you are, aren't you? You don't need to look at the Patroniverse tier. That's just there to take care of the people who don't want to support me on Patreon. But all the people that do, thank you so much. Whiskey Games Matt is saying, Peter Lee Aquaviti, yeah, the Thompson Brothers Fettercairn bottling has a rainbow-coloured unicorn on the bottle. Okay, I think I do recognise it now. I know exactly what you're talking about now. Rainbow-coloured unicorn, fantastic. So there we go. We've got a pretty compelling argument for a Renaissance distillery. And I'm a wee bit surprised. There might be quite a few of you in here tonight that's chatting about the next one that's going to come up, because there's no way I could do a vPub talking about Renaissance distilleries and not mention this distillery. I did think about not mentioning them. Why? Because they get a lot of coverage here on the vPub. There are 3 Aquavitae bottlings that have been released from this distillery in collaboration with them. Official bottlings, private collaboration between the distillery and myself to pick out some of not just the best whiskies I've been able to bottle, but the best whiskies I've enjoyed. Just beautiful, beautiful whiskey. But what we're starting to notice from this distillery is that baby step by baby step, release by release, concept by concept, month by month, year by year, better, 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 better. The best example I could give you to tell you about how much this distillery has improved in just the last 5 years to 10 years alone is that independent bottlers are desperate to get hold of the good stuff. They love the different styles. They love the quality. They love the consistency. They love the uniqueness of the spirit. And it's come along at a time when it's really, really needed. So this is a distillery that's willing to work with independent bottlers. It's willing to play around and do different styles from its ridiculous choice of it's very, very different from Fettercairn. It's got multiple different still types. It can do multiple different products and multiple different distillates from it's complex for even enthusiasts. You need to be, I think, a qualified distiller to be able to keep up with just how many variations can come from this one distillery. Where am I talking about? Pedro is saying Jura 16 made us excited and hopeful to see the same renaissance. Absolutely. When Pedro is talking about the Jura 16, he's talking about the Perspectives 01, an amazing 16-year-old fully natural Jura at an affordable price. Please tell me that some people picked that up and realized that even if it's not the best whiskies I keep saying that you've tried in the last couple of years, it's going to be the best Jura that you've tried, right? Amazing. Jimmy Legg, good to see you, Jimmy. How are you keeping, buddy? 2011, 10-year-old Aquavitae bottling. Thank you so much, Peter Lee. He knows exactly what we're talking about. And as in saying, evening, all evening, Aquavitae, happy Thursday lock-in. Not caught the discussion. So the lock-in is on a Thursday night, buddy. Sorry, a Sunday night. This is Thursday night vPub. But I know exactly what you mean. Not caught the discussion, but Kilkerran is a renaissance. I took delivery of Kilkerran and ex-rum cast today, and I can't wait to try it. I did mention Kilkerran as being a bit of a renaissance story and why it's not included in this session tonight when we opened up, but it's good to have you in here participating, buddy. How many of you know what I'm talking about right now? And I can see the name, it's coming up. Loch Lomond, Michael Henry, Michael Henry, Loch Lomond. Somebody saying whiskey, Matt Gibbs Bishop saying Michael Henry's in the house. So now I feel a little bit of discomfort knowing that the man himself is maybe tuning in tonight. Hopefully he's got his feet up, he's on the sofa, and he's enjoying a dram. I'm going to guess that if Michael Henry's tuning in at the vPub enjoying a dram, I predict he's not sipping Loch Lomond whiskey. It's just the type of guy that he is. He's super curious. He wants to check. He wants to taste. He wants to try. And he'll be out there. He'll be sipping something else. I guess when your day job involves you nosing and tasting so much of your own product, just makes sense to do that. Ian Williamson saying that Jura is a cracker. Like you say, not the best ever whiskey, but definitely the best Jura I've had in a while. Absolutely, and Whiskey Malt Content has found the button. Welcome to the Aquavitae Barflies. He's signed up and he's joined. Thank you so much, buddy. So thank you so much. Whiskey Liberation Front is in celebrating being up. That's Lee J celebrating being a member for 62 months. My goodness, Lee J, you deserve a dram. Echo Ben's text. A bucket list tick off next week for me. Fantastic. Can't wait for you to hear all about it, Lee J. Jerry Miller is celebrating being a member for 53 months. 53 months, no other group has tolerated me so long. Jerry, you're always here. You've got a bar stool here. You've had it there for a long time. George P. has shared 10 Aquavitae gift memberships with the Barflies that are in tonight. George, it's super, super generous of you. I need to get something in the glass so I can raise a wee glass to you. And as I say, Mark, Whiskey Malt Content, has managed to find the button there to sign up. So, of course, we've admitted that we're talking about Loch Lomond. If we talk about overaccumulation of whiskies, the first time I counted my collection and shared it with everyone a few years back, I was surprised to find that the distillery I had the most bottles of on the shelf was Colilla. And that's changed a little bit over the years as I've kind of fallen down rabbit holes chasing the Deanstons of the world and the Ben Romacs and the various distilleries over the years. But there are two distilleries that stand out amongst all others in terms of sheer bottle count. And that's probably a symptom of how much I'm into trying that liquid. But it's also a symptom of how many releases that they're putting out there onto the market, either as an extension to their core range, special editions, small batches, that type of thing, or single casks and that type of stuff too. Those two distilleries, there's actually a third one that's creeping up on us now, and you can see it's my producer of the year over my shoulder here, Glasgow Distillery. There's more and more of that. There's some on the floor over there as well appearing. But by far, the two distilleries that I have more on the shelf over any other, Springbank notwithstanding. Remember, Springbank is 3 brands. It's Hazelburn, Longrow, and Springbank, so that don't count those. That's 3 different things. Is Loch Lomond and Ardnamurchan. So just me looking at the Loch Lomond's up on the shelf there and deciding what to bring along and share with you tonight, I tended to focus on core range. So here's we've got the fruity style, very on theme with tonight. If I was going to just stay on that springtime renaissance theme, that fruity, top note heavy, tropical style, I would be very much in this glass. Inchmurren straight neck pot stills. Lovely stuff. I've got a couple of bottles of this up, and they've got the old branding of the Inchmone 12-year-old, and this is a new one that I bought recently for a very recent vPub. And these are 2 of the core range products alongside the original Loch Lomond 12 as well. And that's their kind of core, that's their central products. You know, you've got non-age statement Loch Lomond Original, I think they call it, and then you've got the 10-year-old that are both mass market versions. But you've got these 46% ABV non-chill filtered core range products. We do sometimes complain that Loch Lomond are still adding caramel colour in the products like these, that people are looking for that consistency. Maybe they're also looking for one or two notes darker as well in the liquid in order for it to be a wee bit more saleable. But one of the best products that's come out of Loch Lomond in recent times, and this is the second bottle I bought of it. The other bottle, I think I gave it to my brother. I think it was my brother that took it away, the first bottle I had of this, because the local bar here, the local pub here is called the East End Fox, and there's obviously a whiskey head in there that owns that place, and he's got a few Loch Lomonds on his shelves. He seems to like it. And this is the whiskey that we bought behind the bar, and I told my brother when we were drinking it that I've got it at home, and he loved it. So it makes sense that I gave it to him. And I had to replace this. This is a non-age statement from Loch Lomond called their Steam and Fire. Now, this branding isn't the best, this kind of blue and red. I can see where they were going for it to kind of, to highlight that concept of steam and fire. But this is coming from their swan neck and their straight neck pot stills. But it's to celebrate that concept of, the distillation, the steam, the vapor, all of that stuff, and fire, the in-house cooperage that they have at Loch Lomond. It's quite a unique thing. There's not a lot of distilleries out there in Scotland that has their own in-house cooperage. Loch Lomond can leverage that as part of their value offering. The big deal about this, despite it being non-age statement, this is 46% ABV, and this is the colour of whiskey. This is non-age stated, okay? This isn't 12 years old. It's going to be a wee bit younger than that. It's going to be a vatting, a mix of different ages, but that's the colour of whiskey. So if I hold up that Inchmurrin that I held up to you a wee bit earlier, the difference in colour between these two is next to nothing. Next to nothing. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see, and I don't know how far Loch Lomond are away from that, and I know that I'm a broken record and they're probably tired of me mentioning it. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see next to that unchill filtered that they get to put that statement that they've put on this one? I think it was actually in the box rather than the bottle for this one. This just says non-chill filtered, but I guarantee you, I think it was on the box. This is natural colour as well. If it was this colour, I think people would still be buying that 12-year-old Inchmurrin. Loch Lomond is capable of producing quite a few million litres of alcohol, and it has been able to do that for years. It's not running quite at that capacity, I'm sure. But over the years, rather than it being a kind of contract producer and bulk whiskey for blends and things like that, it's been slowly building its own brand. Loch Lomond, Loch Lomond, Loch Lomond. When I first moved here to this area of Glasgow, there was an off sale around the corner. And I think it was about £17. I picked up a bottle of Loch Lomond. It had a kind of metallic label on it. I think it was a blue label. Going from memory, £17 or something. I said, well, give it a try. It's 40% ABV, and it just sat there until, I don't know, a party or something like that. I got taken out, probably used for mixed drinks. I'm going back about 15 years now. Nothing made me want to go back to Loch Lomond. So when people started to chat and things, we went along a tasting or two, and slowly but surely, maybe there's some things happening and things are a wee bit more interesting and things start to build. Fast forward to 2025, and I've literally got dozens of bottles of Loch Lomond on the shelf. I've got the core range, the original, I've got the Inchmurrin, I've got the Inchmoen, I've got the 14-year-old, I've got special editions, I've got the open releases, and I've got by far the most on the shelf. We're not even touching upon the single grains that they do, the peated and unpeated, right? This is malt whiskey through a coffee still. I've got loads and loads and loads of the distillery editions too. We're now at distillery edition 8. Every single one of them has been just fabulous. Super interesting whiskies, high quality and fair prices right throughout the range. It's easy to overaccumulate when they're bringing so many good things. But let's go back a wee while. Let's put them on trial. In order for us to call this a Renaissance distillery, not only do they need to achieve progress and moving in the right direction, but they need to have consistency as well. This is one of something that I talked about in a previous vPub for being fantastic value. This is Loch Lomond's, one of their more premium products. This is Loch Lomond 18-year-old. This is old branding, 46% ABV. You can see I've got halfway through this bottle, and I'm going to pour a tiny wee amount of this because we're going to do a wee comparison. I paid, from memory, probably somewhere in the order of 70 quid for this. Not too much. I don't need much of this. Just pour a wee 1.5 2 cl pour, maybe 1.5 cl. And I paid about £80 for this one. This is Loch Lomond's 18-year-old. Now you can see, still purple. They've brightened up the purple a little bit here. That's all, but the branding is obviously brought much more up to date. This is in green glass. This is in clear glass. Clear glass is an encouraging thing for me. You can get to see the colour of the whiskey, but it's only valid if it's natural, right? If they're colouring the whiskey, why even talk about the colour of the whiskey? Can't celebrate it if it's made to a specification, if it's made to a recipe. But if it's natural colour, then there's validity in talking about the colour and celebrating the colour. Let's put a wee 1.5 cl of this. Now, this is a neck pour. Caveats, remember, I think this one is actually, just, if it's not the same, it's pretty close, but it might actually be even a wee tiny dot darker. But this was a very unique, distinctive whiskey to me. This was quite grimy, quite grungy, quite industrial. And it still is. It's got a kind of char, creosote. It kind of always puts me in a kind of workshop environment. Oil and gears and grunge. Thick, heavy, overripe fruit. Fig. Cooked plums, ripe plums, heavy, jammy. And it fits with my memory of how that 18-year-old was. But this 18-year-old that I've just put in the glass just now, the neck pour, this has got to be one of the most affordable, unchill filtered, 46% 18-year-old whiskies that you can pick up today. Okay, it's quite an interesting change. Michael Henry will be curling his toes because he would be dropping this down to 20% to nose these and get the majority. Much more out of the nose than I will, but... So the jamminess is still here on this. This is still fruity and jammy. Still the figgy thing is still there. But a date, toffee, dates. So I'm looking for the industrial, the griminess. Maybe it'll come across the palate, but bear in mind this one's been open a while. This is a neck pour. It's not exactly like for like, but there's an old school trait to this 18-year-old, the old branding one. Whereas this one noses a wee bit more kind of fruit forward. Rich, sweet. And I hesitate to use the word, but I'm going to use it. It smells cleaner. Okay, let's go. Let's sip them back to back. Really unique whiskey. There is a kind of, it's almost a slightly solventy aspect, like as I mentioned, creosote. It's not particularly off-putting. It's not in a bad way, but I'm just trying to find vocabulary that I can convey the style of this whiskey. I think some people might pick this up and they might be drawn towards maybe certain Benromacs, certainly Benromacs of the past, and I think they also could be drawn towards a wee bit of a kind of Ben Nevis aspect too. Citrus, sweet orange citrus, orange rind, candied orange. Let's go into the much newer version. Much sweeter, lots more of that sweet citrus, much more of the sweeter fruit, cleaner fruit. Wood spice. Quite a change. Not in any bad way. It's quite interesting, and I wonder if Michael's still in here tonight. The changes that really started, the investment that started to happened pre-2010 and at Loch Lomond, maybe 2005, 2006, 2007, somewhere of that order. Significant changes where they started to try to build the brand to a much more positive thing. And that takes a long time to do and a long time to build. We're significantly down the road on that now, but I suspect that there's a good chance that the stuff in this glass is from pre-changes, and maybe the stuff in this glass could be from around the time of the changes. So this would be a 2024 bottling of the 18-year-old, I would guess. Still plenty of it out there on the market. A little bitter citrus, especially on the finish. It's quite weird how this older one can have that really sweet, overripe fruit, but also those quite challenging, kind of grungy, dirty notes as well. Whereas this one is much more... I think if you were going to be pouring this for a group of people, this would be much more of a crowd pleaser. I think if it was me that was taking one away, I might be tempted to take the older one simply because it's an interesting whiskey. It's a unique whiskey, whereas this has become much more, I think, of a kind of a well-crafted, a much more modern product. Michael Henry saying, Agaviti, we started working on spirit quality in 2001, looking at yeast strains, cut points on the spirit side. On wood, we put in the rechar machine in 2001 as well. Okay, so we're 24 years down the line in the improvement in that building towards, dare I say it, Michael, I hope you don't mind me crowbarring it, but in that way towards a Renaissance story. Can we just pause for a second and just mention how cool it is that the guy that actually blends and makes and designs these whiskies, crucial in the production, crucial in the product development of it all, is actually in here to answer these things. It's quite amazing to see. Michael, also appreciate that you tagged me as well as Aquaviti, so I picked up your comment. Thank you. Jimmy Legacy saying, there aren't any shops near your house, are there? There are lots of shops near my house. Maybe you didn't see any when you dropped by, buddy. Ginger Genius John, good evening, Roy and all the barflies. Sorry I'm late. What did I miss? Good to have met you ever so briefly, John, right? Just passing ships in the day. Down at Campbelltown Mott's Festival as well. Arnie is here, Doodle the Drabby, saying, I just serviced and oil changed our compressor yesterday, and your notes of Loch Lomond 18 give me flashbacks. It is a wee bit like that, but it's not in a way that puts you off. These are you need to find language that you can use to articulate a style, and a lot of it if you say you're getting a bit of engine oil in a whiskey, Ben Nevis for me, I often get a bit of engine oil in a Ben Nevis, I sometimes get it in Benromac too, as I've already mentioned. When you start to talk about that, it's often just in a very subtle way. It's just something to kind of give it 1 or 2 degrees of separation from something similar. Oh my goodness, a very, very generous dram from my pal, my housemate from Campbelltown. It's from Rolfie. He said, thanks for a fantastic week in Kintyre, and thanks to all the wonderful, happy people I met during the festival. I'm overwhelmed with memories. I'm taking my dad, 90, to our mountain cabin tomorrow. Going to be a good rest for the body and the soul. Rolfie, as you know, I loved having you there, buddy. It was wonderful to just be around with you. It was wonderful to have you in the tastings. It was wonderful to have you as part of our group, sharing taxis with you, sharing food with you just the whole week. Rolfie's one of the, we often refer to him, and it's difficult to decide whether it's the Aaron McFall or Rolf Isaacson, right? Ebhead is barfly number one, the epicenter of the barfly culture, that movement. Was one of those guys way back in, I think, 2018. The reason that Rolfie often gets cited as being the number one barfly is that he created the Aquaviti Barflies page. He's the original creator of that page. And it's wonderful to have you in tonight, buddy. And it's wonderful to have you buying me a dram and saying thank you when I should be saying thanks to you. Cheers, fella. Wow, I love the Loch Lomond 18 new one. I just have a sample. There is a rough, funky note, more earthy notes, fruity red jam. I agree with you on the jam side of things. I get the Ben Nevis, Benromac hint. Fantastic Harrow. I'm glad that you get that too. I don't want to have missed when Michael's chiming in as well. Oliver in Whiskey Veritas is saying, I've been drinking Orchard and Vineyard and Tropical Refill and Chardonnay yeast at your 12 and 14, of course, in the sun for 3 weeks. All started with the Open 2020 and all distillery editions. Fabulous. There's somebody squirreling away a bottle of that Open 2020 release for me. I shared it, as everyone knows, at one of the Blind Challenge events that we did. And that was the last of the stock that I had. So it's nice to know that there's some more coming to me. Oliver, I'm glad that you're enjoying it too. David on is saying, have you got any Croft and Gia in your Loch Lomond collection? Yes, I do. I've got an SMWS up there. And I may have a Watt whiskey as well. But I'm just running on pure memory now. And I can only see the front facing of the bottles at the top of the shelf, buddy. Hope you're all right. Good to have you in, David. David Evans is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 62 months, and he's saying, sorry, in late tonight. Like I say, David, thank you very much for your support. There's no such thing as late to the vPub, and Jimmy Legg is celebrating being a member for 63 months and saying, Loch Lomond, best choice you could have made. Having Mr. Henry here, says Jimmy, is really the coolest, isn't it? It must really make you feel like what you're doing is truly important. Well, I don't know if it makes me feel like it's important, but it makes me feel like it's fun, right? And I know that Michael's here because he's super curious and he understands the concept that how can he make the best product that he can unless he understands what his peers are making and what all the other whiskies are like that's out there. It just kind of makes him understand his own product, I think, a wee bit better. I think he just gets it. And he's just a great guy to have around. And he's saying that you can rechar twice. Each time you rechar, you take 3 to 5 millimeters of thickness off the wood. The stave is 27 millimeters thick to start with. If we rechar twice, that takes 10 millimeters off, leaving 17. So at that point, the casks are pretty frail and thin, I would imagine. Brian Storm is saying Loch Lomond single grain has to be one of the best value whiskies out there. Incredible drams for the cash. There's the green version, which is peated, the red version, which is unpeated as well. And I would agree with you. There's a few special editions that they've done over the years as well. I remember specifically, and this is when I realised that when Loch Lomond, it was being celebrated. And it was January of this year. And we were at, along with a lot of you barflies that made it up to Glasgow for that event or across to Glasgow, wherever you travelled from, for the Thompson Brothers tasting that we held in the Bonaccord in January of this year. And I remember Simon Thompson speaking, I don't know if he was speaking to the crowd or if it was just speaking to a smaller group, but it was just us. And I remember him singing the praises of Loch Lomond. And I think one of the reasons that he was down in Glasgow actually was for a visit to Loch Lomond that next day or something, or maybe earlier that day, I'm not sure. But when real whiskey geeks, when whiskey enthusiasts of Simon and Phil Thompson's ilk start to take a real interest in Loch Lomond and want to understand how they're able to get so much variation and flavour and so much flavour into the, and we're speaking about specifically with Loch Lomond, almost all the dialogue, almost all the language is flavour in the spirit before it even is touched wood. One of the most amazing things about that whole setup is when they start to talk about it so positively, when they want to get their hands on the good Loch Lomonds, when they want to share and put their own spin and release their own takes on the types of things that are being made at that distillery. Again, it's on theme. This is a big distillery, up to 5 million litres if they wanted. This is large-scale stuff. They have to have an eye on the mass market, on the volume stuff, selling pallets and pallets of 9-litre cases of liquid all across the world. That's what they need to focus on. They need to focus on contracts, and they need to focus on blending stock and all of this stuff. So it's amazing to me that they've been able to do all of this brand building while all of that is going on. Core range products, non-age statement and lower age statement, the 10-year-old for multiples, for supermarkets, for mass market, an unchill filter 12-year-old core range, and then all the higher age statements and special editions and distillery editions and open editions and all sorts of things that's coming on the back of that. I guarantee you, if you were to do a search of the Dramface database, one of the most reviewed whiskies that you'll find on Dramface is going to be Loch Lomond. It must be in the top 10. That's something that a decade ago would have been unthinkable. It's no longer a try before you buy distillery. For me, it's not even a case of waiting until I hear some chatter about people saying, oh, have you tried the new Loch Lomond, whatever it may be, it's a good one or it's an average one or whatever it may be. For me, I just pick it up. The distillery editions are a no-brainer. As soon as they drop, I'm buying a bottle. Sometimes I'm buying a couple of bottles when it's a good one. If we talk about Renaissance, there is no way I could have done a vPub topic tonight and not mentioned Loch Lomond. Quite apart from this wee 18-year-old comparison I've done tonight, just as an aside, just to indulge me, because I saw that the 18-year-old was still a very affordable, one of the most affordable 18-year-olds out there in the market. I think it's a fantastic story of things moving in the right direction. So, Michael, I know you're so much part of that, but I know the entire team is there at Loch Lomond. I know it takes an entire team to do these types of things, but to everyone there at the group in general, for everything that you're doing down at Glen Scotia and with your own brand as well, just keep it coming. Fantastic. Callum Renton is in. So good to see you, Callum. It's wonderful to welcome you in the vPub, buddy. I hope you're doing well. Dram in my glass tonight is a Scotia Festival single cask Reachar Hoggy 15-year-old. What a dram. I missed out on that one, Callum. I assume that's a Loch Lomond Reachar machine in action. Superb. Absolutely superb, Callum. Kind of feeling like I wish I'd tried that now. I know you were pouring some whiskey when you were down there, but it was from an SMWS bottle. Some Glen Scotia down at the festival. Aye, it's nice to have Callum Renton in here tonight. It's nice to have you, buddy. Helen Williamson is saying another good vPub. Thanks, Roy. I look forward to catching the rest and being dismal in the quiz at the end on replay. Night on, speak next week. Helen is not hanging out with us tonight because they are up to their eyes in their house move, collecting the keys and doing all the admin that comes with all of that for our move to the Kintyre Peninsula. Quite exciting times. Helen, I hope it all goes very, very well. And now that you're picking it up in the replay, it's nice to have you back. Pedro is saying 100% agreed. Aquavita Loch Lomond is always a strong buy. Fantastic to hear. And it's always nice when other people chime in and back up what I'm saying rather than kind of just, just going on my opinion. It's never just one opinion, right? Ginger James John is saying, just finished the Distillery Edition 5, went straight out and picked up another one at auction. Fantastic liquid now, Distillery Edition 5. Could that have been one of the blends? I don't even remember now. Gordon Burniston is saying, I've heard and read so much about Loch Lomond, but yet to try anything. Tonight has just compounded my need to start the exploration. Where is the best place to start? Aquavita Michael Henry. I would go right out, and if you're going to buy a bog standard, buy the 12-year-old Inchmurren. If you're willing to have a wee bit more patience, buy any of the distillery editions. All of them are stunners. Joseph Devine, Joe Devine has bought us a dram. Nothing, no mention or anything. Listen, I know a Joe Devine from the past. I wonder if that's the same Joe Devine or if this is a new Joseph Devine. Either way, thank you very much for the generous dram, Joseph, and nice to have you here. Cheers to you, Slancher. Interesting that I've finished the newer one first. There are some traits. There's a definite DNA overlap here. I think this newer one is just, it's almost like it's been cleaned up a little bit, which is a good thing for some folk, and different for others. But for me, I like how oddly curious and interesting this original 18-year-old is. Yeah, it's just a bit. It's quite a dram. Doodle the Dram is saying, I'm extra hype now to open the Decadent Drinks Inchmurren 12 on holidays. I think Loch Lomond needs to be my next deep dive. So Decadent Drinks released, that's the one that Doodle the Dram is talking about, an independent bottling, of course, from Decadent Drinks. It was an Inchmurren 12-year-old, and it was literally just the most luscious, fruity, beautiful cask of Inchmurren that I've tasted from any independent bottler. I would put it right up there in terms of quality and experience with that original 10-year-old that I released, the 12-year-old that I released. It was just a gorgeous, gorgeous whiskey. Arnie, please let me know how you got on with that when you take it on holiday with you. Let me know how you enjoy it. Ryan Sutherland is in. Good to see you, Ryan. I hope you're keeping well. As is Black Fen. Good to see you in, Conrad. It's always nice to welcome you in the vPub. Ben Demon Hunter is here too. Wonderful to welcome you all. Gordon Fraser is here as well. Oats, oats, oats. So there you go. Despite everything I've covered and talked about Loch Lomond, I haven't even talked about all the other experiments that they're doing with fermentation times and cut points and cooling rings and not cooling rings and different grains. It's fantastic. It really is. The future is bright. Okay, let's do a wee... I'm not going to dwell on this because I don't want this to be a negative vPub. But there are some producers out there, and the only reason that I want to talk about it, because I'm not sharing any secrets with you, I'm not holding up any warning triangles here or telling you to avoid. You already know to avoid because you're already avoiding it. You already know to steer clear of the distilleries that are either quite happy, stuck in the past, stuck in the crap, stuck in the trudge, stuck in the not able to demonstrate what they actually make, as well as take care of the mass market products, the cheap products, the corners cut product. They seem to not only be incapable of doing that, but they seem to be able to cut even more corners to the point that it's a wee bit heartbreaking, because some of these distilleries are legend. I asked my patrons when I was scheduling this vPub this week, I asked them to give me the list of their distilleries that they felt had moved backwards. And the responses were myriad. It really were, because we were getting everything from Highland Park to Glengoyne they were just absolutely all over the place. People that had connected with whiskies at some point and find that the quality is weakening over time and they're struggling to get back to that original anchor that drew them in. Now, there might be a wee bit of nostalgia in that, but I put it to you that some distilleries sometimes seem incapable of releasing a good product, despite the fact that the liquid that's actually made at that distillery is fantastic. A couple of drams come in here. One from Peter Lee. Thank you very much, buddy. Saying, here's a dram to you and Michael Henry. The trip to Loch Lomond Distillery with Jimmy Legg and Graham Fraser has been one of our highlights in our journey. Hanging out with you at Glen Scotia with David, James, Andrew, Flora, and Denise. That was for as brief as you managed to make it to Campbelltown this year, Peter. I was delighted that you made it. It's not typical to see you out and about when it's not a Monday, buddy. It was wonderful to see you down there. And I remember that day, going back a couple of years ago now, sitting at Loch Lomond, and some of the moments that we had, fantastic. And Marco is still here. He's at least he's spoken to me this time. But another super generous dram. Loch Lomond is fairly popular here in Serbia. Okay, Serbia, fantastic, Marco. Thank you so much. Single malts are pushing through here, in spite of omnipopular Silovitz plum brandy. Okay. RSD are Serbian dinars. That's fantastically generous of you, buddy. I'll raise a wee glass of something here. I don't want to. I've still got something. Here's one of the Fetterkins I poured earlier. I'll raise this to you, Marco. Let's say thank you very much for your generosity. Peter Lee, thank you for your generosity and your hospitality and everything that you do, bud. It's wonderful to have you in here on a Thursday night as well. It's nice that we're able to encourage Peter to work a wee bit less hard, isn't it? Hey, Marco in Serbia, Slanjava to you, Peter Lee and Denise. Cheers to you too. Nice to have you all in here. Super fruity, super clean, super precise, laser focused. I have to say, I think the one I poured at the start of tonight is this Warehouse 2 Batch 4, which was my least favourite of the batches. And I think this is the one that they lent a little bit on. I can't remember the cask makeup of this one, but I also think it was the youngest. This was 2022 Batch 4, Warehouse 2 Batch 4, and I think this was the weakest, 48.8% ABV. So I think that would be the one to probably avoid if you try and pick up the Warehouse 14 Batch 1, try and pick up the Warehouse 2 Batch 3, or Batch 2, or Batch 1. All of those, 1, 2, and 3 were fantastic. There'll be lots of them around at auction, but it'll be harder to track those down on the open retail market, primary market. You can still pick up the one that I'm sipping now, Warehouse 2 Batch 4, bang average. Warehouse 14 Batch 1 is better. My recommendation, go for the 16-year-old. Whiskey with Molly celebrating being a member for 44 months and saying any drams to hunt on the tune next week. Yes, all of them. Can I share a wee secret? Look out for cage bottles. We'd sat in on the cage tasting, and I'm not a fan. There was lots of fantastic whiskies, by the way. So I'm not going to suggest that this was my favourite, but it was a standout, and it was a long row from a Chateau Lafite cask. It's a cage bottling. Try if you can, if somebody's got, I'm not a wine cask fan, as everybody knows, but it was an eye-popping moment. It really was. It was on the lineup. It was in front of us. A long row cage bottle from a Chateau Lafite cask. It's one to look out for. I think you're like me, Ben. You're not a big fan of wine casks. Please don't judge it by the fact it's from a wine cask. Just sip the whiskey. Daisy is saying, besides the Aquavite bottlings, I only have a SMWS in Smyrna and a remarkable Alchemy Open. Too little shelf space. Listen, that's nothing to be worried about. You've got the wee monkey covering his eyes and the emoji there, Daisy. Listen, this is something that we all have challenges with. I fully admit that if it wasn't for what I do here on a Thursday night with all of you, there is no way my family would tolerate the amount of space in my house that's dedicated to finding spots to stash a whiskey library. And Tim is saying, yes, Highland Park is done for me, except independent Aquavite. It's a wee shame. I have to say the cast strength releases from Highland Park, I think, are worthy and not too expensive. But you're right. You're absolutely right. I think as Tim's pointing out, the official Highland Parks have gone in a direction that make it difficult because they're either gone too expensive, too oddball, or too insipid. There was a time that Highland Park, the core range, especially when they focused on that core range, was absolutely rock solid. And it was just, despite the fact that the ABV was lower and things like that, it was just always super reliable. Whiskies, I don't know if that's still the case now. I've got the 18-year-old there. It's still a generous amount left in a bottle. And it's objectively good whiskey, but it's nothing you would crave, and it's nothing that you're excited to share anymore. There was a time that when you had Highland Park 18 open, it would really be a little bit of an event whiskey, right? It's just the way that things go. There are a few distilleries out there that, unlike Jura, who has been ridiculously easy to ignore in the past, have made active steps to bring something out that should really kind of test the water to see how much that they're excited, or we're excited to try Jura when it's naturally presented. That Perspectives 01 was a huge ray of bright, searing light for us. Jura Perspectives 01 was a real step in the right direction as well. And I think it was way north. I think it was 48.5 or 46.8 or something. It was way north of the 46% ABV, fully natural. It's fantastic. But there's a distillery out there that I love. I love the liquid. I love the history. I love the story. I love visiting there. I love going there. I love touching the walls. I love standing. I love the views. I love the location. Just love everything. I love the character of the distillery. And I hate the stuff that comes out in official bottlings. This is Alan's also bought me a super generous dram. He's saying greetings from holiday in Hawaii. Alan, you show off. He's saying no whiskey on hand, but enjoying the vPub with a glass of Sauvignon Blanc on a beautiful sunny day. Hey, the fact that you're there with a glass of wine in your hand, middle of the day, and you're coming in here to say hello is fantastic enough. Buying me a dram is a wee bit too much, Alan. Here's to you, and we'll try and all hide our jealousy a wee bit, shall we? Cheers, Alan. Have a fantastic holiday, buddy. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks for the generous dram. Cheers. I think you know the distillery I'm talking about. Everyone is saying, I can't think of a more Renaissance whiskey than Glenallachie. Every bottle is getting better and better. Hope this is one of your choices. It was on the slate. It was absolutely a possibility for me to speak about. Imagine taking a Pernod Ricard distillery, somebody that's super impassioned, somebody that's skilled, stepping in with the time, the patience, the wherewithal, the finances, the money, the experience, everything, to take an ignored distillery like Glenallachie and turn it into something that was on the lips of all the enthusiasts. Absolutely, it should have been in the slate. It's not there tonight, Chris. Sorry. However, like I say, it could be a series, and we could celebrate Glenallachie in the future. The one I'm going to finish off tonight is a similar story. Jimmy Legacy, you're making out okay tonight. Another Brora incoming, Aquaviti. Yeah, I am. The people have been very, very generous. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I have to just take a break a wee bit more often or something. Thank you, Jimmy. Sandro is saying, Charoy, calling Chateau Lafite a wine cask is like calling a Ferrari a car. I know. But the thing is, here's the thing. The cage bottle price for that long row from a Chateau Lafite cask is the same as any other long row of that age, the cage bottle price. I'm just suggesting it's something that you need to look out for. Ben is saying, my mate had a Beaumont and Chateau Lafite. The distillery bought it back off him at 10 times what he purchased it at. That's my tip for Campbelltown, Ben. So if you can get yourself a cage bottle, there's a cage bottle of the long row from a Chateau Lafite, it's beautiful. We know that long row, the whiskey that taught me that red wine casks could be enjoyable is long row, specifically the Malbec, 13-year-old. I hadn't enjoyed a wine cask whiskey until that moment. And yet there it is, it's doing it for me again. Anyway, Ben, you also mentioned the distillery I have to talk about tonight. I'm going to hold up some things that I love. You hear me raving about this Bowmore Vault Edition, telling you that it's one of the best whiskies I've enjoyed in recent years and one of the most repeat purchases I've tried in recent years as well. There are other Bowmores that you can pick up and love. Here's the Tempest from years and years ago. This is a 10-year-old Tempest. Fantastic ABV on this, let's be honest. 55.6% ABV. This is a small batch release, obviously. Bourbon cask as well. Look at that colour. Look at that pale colour. We love it. You know, really everything dialed up. The maritime element, the floral element of Bowmore, the tropical element of Bowmore, they were all dialed up to the maximum in that Tempest. Super salty whiskey as well. Loved it. And even this one, despite it being, I think this was from first fill casks, this is the Fischel release for 2022. There was buckets of this available. Should be lots of it around on secondary market still as well. This was available for weeks and months even after the Fischel. 54.7% ABV. 15-year-old age statement on this. And I think it was sub £100. I think it was about £90 or something like that when it was released. So we know that this distillery on Islay, one of the oldest distilleries in Scotland, is capable of magical things. And yet we get the non-age statement, what's it called, number one or something, or the one. We get this 12-year-old, we get the 15-year-old, and we get the 18-year-old. At least they've dropped the darkest moniker and things like that as well. Darkest, Bowmore Darkest. Oh, what are you doing there? You tell us a story about casks, but in truth, you're just making sure that it's darkest with the use of caramel colouring. All of the Bowmore range is heavily reliant on caramel colouring, in my opinion. I don't get to see how they're making it. I don't get to see how they're bottling it. I don't get that behind the scenes thing. But I tell you from my experience as a whiskey lover and somebody who knows and loves Bowmore, that when I try this stuff, it bears no resemblance to how a 12-year-old product from that distillery should taste. Nothing. This is poor Bowmore, very poor. We've talked about mass market whiskey, and we've talked about how making whiskey that is, especially when it's mature and it's been in cask a wee bit longer and it's much more precious, how that you need to be a bit more careful with it. Bowmore seemed to just be the 18, the 15, the 12-year-old, the core, the anchor products, the chat where you've got a chance to bring someone in. Okay, they're soft and smooth and they're potentially easy to drink, but as soon as you taste it against anything that's of any reasonable quality whatsoever, it makes this look flat as a fart. It's poor. I bought this for a very, very specific reason on the vPub months and months and months ago, and I've not poured another dram out of this bottle. If we talk about looking at our shelves for the amount of accumulation we have of distilleries, I'm almost a wee bit embarrassed sometimes about how little Bowmore that I have on the shelf, but it's easy for me to justify. I'm going to pour this into a dirty glass. I'm not sipping a dram of this. Just putting a wee teaspoon of it in. Maybe it's wonderful. Maybe it's changed. Maybe it's... It's a little bit like biting into a burger. Let's imagine you've ordered a burger and you know the burger, it's a good burger, you're ready, you know exactly what you're going to taste, and you bite into that burger, and you've got the bread and you've got the lettuce and you've got the cheese, and there's literally no filling. It's like dust. It's like flat. It's a vacuum of flavour. And it's got worse over the years. There was a time when we could order a Bowmore 12-year-old, when we could buy a bottle of a Bowmore 12-year-old, when we could enjoy how good a whiskey this was, despite the fact it's always been bottled at 40% ABV, 43 for export if you're lucky. But for some reason, Beam Suntory, these days are gone. You know the investment that you're showing Glengarry right now? Direct firing your wash still, going back to floor malting, bringing peated malt back, going back to that old school, being loyal, being faithful to the distillery character that distillery was once able to produce. Can you show a little bit of that TLC to Bowmore? I hope that you're still making that quality of whiskey at that distillery. But what's making it from the point when it's mature, when it's in that cask, what you're taking out of that cask and putting into that bottle is not only poor for Bowmore, But that is piss poor against everything else you're trying to sell against, and you're exposed as soon as anyone else tries something alongside your core product release. It's watery, it's thin, there's no texture, there's no weight, there's no body, there's no flavor. It's flat. It is literally DOA. Your distillery on Islay is literally one of the all-time legends in Scotch whisky. It is not what you're making, it's what you're offering. And I think it's the exact opposite of Renaissance. It is, in my opinion, decay. Pete Ed Frank is saying, but more were given out the 22-year-old as a free drams during their open day yesterday. Reason might be the end of the connection with Aston Martin. Was it good? Did you buy any? Martin Logan is saying, such a shame that Bowmore is handled this way. I still vividly remember the 2004 Whiskeyland one from that Whiskey Live show in Paris. Smoky, tropical fruit goodness. Like I say, I've given you 3 Bowmores I can recommend before I got really negative about it, and apologies for becoming negative about it, but it's not a surprise to most of you, right? Ian Williamson is saying, had a drama or Bowmore 12 last week. What an utter disappointment. First and last time, I suspect. Jimmy Like is saying, I tell you, the Lefroy 10 and Selector, sure battles for the worst OB bottlings. I would take Lefroy 10 over Bowmore 12. Easily, Jimmy. Danny Heaventon is saying that Bowmore 12 is undoubtedly the worst whiskey I've tasted outside what I used to find left after my parents' New Year parties in the 70s. Listen, this is easy for me to talk about in this respect. And the reason it's heartbreaking is because we know how much we love the distillery. Just to stand in the courtyard of that distillery is an absolute privilege. To walk in the maltings in the warehouse and to smell and to taste and to touch and all of that. And yet, from distant places, we reach out for a wee bit of that in their 12-year-old, and it's nothing. It's just nothing is there. Which batch of the Tempest Aquavitae? This one, Jimmy? Oh, I hope it tells me on the label. Tells me it's non-chill filtered, which is great. Cask type first fill. Bourbon batch number 3. This is batch 3 of the Tempest. This is the second Tempest I've had. Don't ask me what the other batch was because I'd be relying on memory now. I don't know. Fair enough. Bravo, says Sandro. With Ben is saying, my mate had a Bowmore Chateau Lafitte. The distillery bought it. Okay, I mentioned that one, Ben. I've scrolled a wee bit too far backwards. Let's get back up and catch up with you guys. And Gordon Fraser is saying, no one better mess with the Geary Aquavitae. I suspect that it's already been messed with, Gordon. But listen, don't worry. I think that what they're doing is only going to amplify that product. Doodle the Drama is saying, funnily enough, I bought 2 Bowmore Darkest to put behind the bar at our wedding party in Germany 7 years ago. The local Oompa band absolutely rinsed both of them in 30 minutes. I hope they enjoyed them, buddy. Fantastic, Arnie. All right, let's get off the negativity. Let's get on to the positivity. 1 hour, 47 minutes in, and I want to kind of do this last thing. I need 2 clean glasses, though. I think that's a clean glass. Yep. I've ended up with 3 clean glasses. Have I been pouring into dirty glasses tonight? I'm not sure. I only need 2 for this purpose. But now I'm going to share with you pure optimism. the pure visceral fun that comes from witnessing and being part of a renaissance, whether it's things coming back from the brink or things that's come back from being lost, whether it's brand new, exciting Duras that's naturally presented, or being able to taste Coquerin when it wasn't a distillery for so long. Maybe in the future we might, naivety and optimism coming out now, we might be able to afford and participate in the rebirth of Port Ellen or Brora, these types of things, Rosebank. Regardless, we're living in a privileged time. More variety, more choice than there's ever been. And a lot of it is at the hands of people that care about renaissance, about resuscitation, about bringing things back, about moving in the right direction. Somebody mentioned Glenallachie earlier here tonight. That was a perfect example for this session tonight, this topic. Talk about how Billy Walker went into this Pernod Ricard distillery that was largely ignored, making product only for blends, everything getting filled into refill casks at high ABV. So a huge program of development there of recasking, of changing production, of morphing it into what Billy Walker's vision was, rather than being something that produced, fodder's a terrible word, but for the sake of tonight, blend fodder. Sorry, why am I getting a warning up? Looks like it's okay. Hopefully you can still see and hear me and everything's going fine. I hate when that happens. Danny Hebbington has bought 10 Aquavita memberships as well. Danny, thank you very much for your generosity. That means that 10 people out there is unsuspectingly just been gifted an Aquavita Barfly membership. I hope you all keep it up. So that has fortunately happened with more than one distillery. There's another distillery out there that was owned by Chivas Brothers or Pernod Ricard that has been bought in a similar way to Glenallachie, and that is, of course, Tormore. 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, I think I'm going back 3 years ago, I think it was 2022. In fact, I know it was 2022 because I heard about it when I was on Isla with all the guys from Dramface. We heard that Elixir Distillers had purchased Tormore Distillery. Now, Tormore Distillery, it was one of those distilleries that had always kind of had various toes in the water of official releases over the years, and it's had for decades, since the 70s, maybe 50 years, more. It's had official releases, but easy to ignore for the most part. Maybe some of the original stuff from the 70s was held in high regard, but the things that come along in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, not so much. I'll show you a couple of official bottlings. There was an old kind of white label green bottle, very distinctive branding from the 70s. I don't have any of that, but it was followed up by this bottling here. There was a 10-year-old of this. I think it was a non-age statement as well. This is a 5-year-old version of it, 40% ABV. This was famously called the Grenade. You can see why it's called that because of the style of the bottle. This is poor whiskey now. This is the old bottle effect, and this is just cranked a wee bit too high. It's not easy to enjoy this Tormore. It's nothing to do with the character of the spirit. I think it's just the way it's been stored over the years. One of these auction purchases. Here's a much more recent Tormore. This is a 16-year-old. They also had a 14-year-old at lower ABV as well. This is 48% ABV. The wonderful thing about this is the transparency from Pernod Ricard here. It shows that they are capable of doing this from time to time. It tells us here that this was bottled in January 2016. I kept this sealed for a long, long time. It was opened live in the vPub. I can't remember for what reason now. 48% ABV. It tells us on the label that it's non-chill filtered, which is really nice. We don't know anything about colouring. They've got nose, taste and finish notes on there. I've obviously managed to enjoy this and get through it. And I have to say this is a good bottle of whiskey. Good. I don't think I could push it any higher than that, maybe a 5 or a 6 out of 10 on a Dramface score. But I've enjoyed it. I've clearly enjoyed it. But today, as I speak to you in 2025, Tormore is brought back to life. Only 3 years and a tremendous amount of work and effort that's gone in by Elixir Distillers to completely change what they're doing there. Now, of course, Tormore is a big distillery. Depending on which copy of the Malt Whisky Yearbook you're looking at, it's anywhere between 2 to 5 million litres capacity. Today, they're producing somewhere in the order of 3 to 3.5 million litres per annum. This is massive. To give you an idea, that's probably about 8 or 9 times the size of Springbank. It's huge. So when we talk about the theme tonight of having a focus on having stuff that's available for trade and blending and bulk and contracts and all of these things, mass market products, but also somehow managing to bring a product for enthusiasts, I get the sense from Tormore, and I'm going to prove to you now, or I'm going to suggest to you, I'm going to share with you why I get this feeling, that they have got their eye on all of it. If I was to put my trust in an independent bottler, Elixir would be up there. Think of Single Malts of Scotland. I've never had a bad one. I've never. Elements of Islay, always interesting, always good value. Think of Port Askig, the Islay product, right? It's always single malt. We don't really know where it's coming from, but it's always fantastic. Really fantastic. And they never, in my experience, they're never tempted to overcharge. Elixir Distillers, for me, is one of these kind of warm, fuzzy producers that just builds up a level of trust that helps me buy blind. I don't need to try before I buy. It goes a long way. So when Elixir are involved in bringing back a distillery, I'm going to sit up and pay attention. Now, unfortunately, I've got 2 bottles out of a set of 3. I wasn't able to get the third one. I don't really care, because those that I'm actually interested in, for me personally, I've got here. The more I see the branding on these bottles, the more I love them. We can't talk too much. We can't, the aesthetics, the visuals, the branding and things, they don't really matter too much, we say, but they do matter to us. They really do. We're emotive creatures, right? And the way things look mean a lot. This is the classic tall round shape here. This is in a kind of smoked glass. But what they've done is they've paid this wonderful homage to the original 1970s Tormores here. You can see in big letters, they've got blueprint. We'll talk more about that in a second. They've got an age statement here on both of these. 48% ABV, great bottling strength, of course. And of course, it's Elixir Distillers. There's no colour in either of these, fully unchill filtered as well. 2 different releases, and they're calling these blueprint. And there's another wee strap line on here as well on both bottles at the top. It says official pre-release. Pre-release, what does that mean? Well, they've really tried to release it to support local retailers. So they've put it out in the Speyside region for this Spirit Speyside Festival. They had it over at Limburg, letting people try it at Limburg as well. But all the first releases went through independent retailers. It's coming out in the coming days for a wider release, because there's 1,500 bottles of each of 3 releases, 4,500 in total. And the one that's missing here is the sherry cask version, which was a mix of Oloroso and PX. I don't have that. That was the most popular one, and the one that sold out first, which to me is a wee bit odd. And let me share why. This one here that I've just opened now is matured in bourbon barrels. Now that means a mix of first fill bourbon and refill bourbon, which is very, very typical and in line with what you would expect Tormore to be all about. Let's get this. And I want to pour a reasonable amount of this. Enough to compare. So put a couple of CL in the glass here. So in the Glen Scotia glass, I've got the bourbon barrel one. Fairly limited small batch release, all natural, pre-release, kind of exclusive vibes about it. And yet, hats off to Elixir Distillers. They've kept things cool, reasonable. They've played it canny. £60. Very fair price. And in the clear glass, I'm going to put in the second one. Oh, which is quite a few notches darker in colour now that it's out the smoke glass. But in the second one is toasted barrels. 1,500 bottles, small batch. All the transparency we need is here. Fantastic to read. Fantastic. Now, I'll tell you just now, I've tasted both of these glasses. I've tasted both of these whiskies I've tried. First time in Limburg. I've tried them more recently too. Interestingly, Elixir Distillers, Ollie Chilton was down at Campbelltown and he was sharing these whiskies when he was down there. So I got to try them again. So I know I'm already happy. It was easy for me to go out and spend the money on these. But we're able to live blow by blow the renaissance of another unique distillery on Speyside. We talk about how unique Fettercairn is up there in the Eastern Highlands, right? If you drive into Speyside, in recent years you see Ballindalloch, of course, and it's very obvious with the big painting along the wall, Ballindalloch and things. But forever, for as long as you've been into Whiskey, you've been driving into Speyside. On your right-hand side as you drive into Speyside, there's that big distillery on the right-hand side, that white building, very ornate, very striking, very standout with green roofs, copper roofs. That was Tormore Distillery. No visitor centre, no way, no car park, no place to pull in, nowhere to stop, nowhere anything. Pretty dangerous little stretch of road as well apparently. But just something that you made note of it as you drove past. It was kind of their rival in Speyside. Worse than that, there wasn't even a lot, despite the fact that there were official bottles released over the years. They were either available or they weren't, and there wasn't always a lot of it available from indies. Easy to ignore Tormore. But like I say, blow by blow, we are literally living through the renaissance of that at the hands of Elixir. At a recent tasting hosted by Ollie, he stood up and he said, "We want to try and get the best out of our distilleries we possibly can. So our still shapes are our still shapes. The way that they're set up, the amount of washbacks that we have, the layout, everything, down to the huge purifiers that they have. They are set up, and they have always been set up since the 1950s. Tormore's a post-war distillery to make peach juice. Music to my ears. Stone fruit, tropicality, light, ethereal, wonderful spirits. Why would you try and mask it? Why would you try and cover it? Why would you try and be all things to all men? That is fantastic to hear. So what we've got with the bourbon barrels is fairly obvious a proposition, I think. I think it's refill and first fill bourbon. Super fruit, super sweet overripe grapes. Peach, nectarine, tinned mandarin, syrup, mandarins and syrup. Again, on theme with a lot of the things I've been talking about tonight. Springtime whiskies, bright, fruity, ethereal, lots of top notes. 10-year age statement. I imagine that there's a mix of years in the vatting here, but minimum 10. The nose just is so inviting, just reeks of good quality. 48% ABV. Let's see how the mouthfeel is. Let's see how the flavour is. There's a dryness to the palate. It's a little bit of a surprise. But all that light touch, delicate, top note stone fruit is there. Super small batch, 1,500 bottles. Some nice tart sharpness on the finish, little bit of acidity. Let's have another wee sip. Clean, very clean. Tormore often had a little bit of a kind of grapefruit, herbal, basil, leaning occasionally on cat's piss note that I occasionally got from certain bottles of Tormore. That's not here. This is clean. This is focusing on the orchard fruit, the stone fruit, the sweet fruits. Third sip. It's quite short on the finish. It's kind of vapor. It does disappear. It's kind of an atomized sensation. Sweet citrus, tinned mandarins, perfect. There is some orchard here, but it's again sweet. So it's like sweet conference pear, juicy pear. You can see where I'm going. All of the experience here is that lovely Lovely springtime fruit. So that's the bourbon barrel expression at 48% ABV. Let's go straight in and compare it with the significantly darker toasted barrel. Now, what's the toasted barrel about? What's so different about that? Well, of course, bourbon barrels are going to be typically charred, right? Toasted barrels are different. That's where the wood has been toasted first before the char is put in. So they're trying to extract, they're trying to almost get a jump on, get some early access to some of those kind of wood sugars and things by toasting. So being toasted and charred, toasting is accessing the sugars, the char is acting as the filter. What we're saying here is this is virgin oak. This is virgin oak casks. But this is not virgin oak that we've imported from. So don't think Deanston virgin oak, for example. That's just going to be a virgin oak heavy charred. It's going to be imported in that state. This is different. This is toasting, then charring. So hence the darker color here. So what I'm getting on the nose here is much more of a kind of sweet citrus style. I'm actually getting a wee bit of that kind of it's sweet, it's heavy, it's almost kind of grapefruit and orange oil. But there is a bit of grapefruit, there's a little bit of tartness here. But the thing that's coming over the top here is like a cedar wood, a wood spice. It's a wee bit of sawn wood. Not clove, but maybe clove, maybe cinnamon, maybe. I think you know the spectrum of spices that I'm in here. This is a warmer, darker, richer experience than the kind of top note floral. I don't think you would nose this and nose this is virgin oak. It doesn't have a lot of that kind of, sometimes with virgin oak Scotch whiskies, you do lean towards a wee bit closer towards bourbon type flavors. But there's a sharpness here, and I don't know if it's citrus or spice, but that's where it's sitting on. It's like spiced oranges. Okay, let's have a wee sip. Okay. This is much more obvious. This is much more striking. This is shouty. So where you've got that kind of nice, polite, discreet bourbon barrel release, where you've got something that's a bit more bold. It's going to leave its presence much more. That's big floral aspect here on the palate, like a rosewater thing I wasn't expecting. Definitely rosewater. A little bit of kind of cherry menthol, wood spice, sandalwood, cedarwood, that type of crazy. £60. And suddenly, when we're talking about Renaissance, we've got a brand new distillery back on the scene to get excited about. It's fantastic. The way they've gone around this, some of you might know I only learned it this week, but Tormore is often referred to as the pearl of Speyside. So with this white label, this is not just a plain white label, it's actually pearlescent. It's really quite nice. I don't know what their branding is going to look like long term, but for the initial release, for them to kind of give this homage back to the 70s, early 80s bottles, where it was kind of green glass and the white label and things, similar tall round bottle. I think it's just nice. It's just this kind of quiet confidence of it all. This is not what's going to be released when they eventually get to their core range. This is just them laying down blocks for us to taste. So they've got their toasted barrels, they've got their bourbon barrels, and the sherry cask barrels. Cream sherry, they're calling it, which is a mix of Oloroso and PX. But we're getting to live through this right now. This small batch release is a kind of a little peek under the hood. In the years ahead, next year and going forward, they're going to start to nail their core range. And we're going to suddenly have core range from not just new wave distilleries, lots and lots of them out there, not the existing legacy distilleries, but an existing legacy distillery that's reinventing its core range and focusing on quality and flavor first, and not shoehorning or crowbarring or forcing, but trying to enhance what they already make. And when they use terms like peach juice, I'm in. Let's go back to the first one. Okay, on the back of the toasted barrel one, this one suddenly brings this kind of weird but lovely mineral quality. Not chalky, maybe more like a pebble slate type thing. There's creaminess to it. There's a lovely sweetness to it. Toasted barrel again. We are in a state of renaissance with quite a few distilleries out there. Some I've mentioned tonight, other ones will be mentioned and brought up in the future. I hope to do this again in future vPubs. I hope there's enough content in order for us to do that, enough distilleries that's moving in the right direction to make this something to talk about going forward. But Tormore has been, let's be honest, a dormant distillery for us. It's been asleep. It's been doing nothing. It's been filling into refill wood for a long time. Nothing to interest us. Very rarely something nice might end up on the independent market, that type of thing. But even the official bottles, when they were available, they're rare now. The one I held up is 48% 16-year-old that I held up there as an example. They weren't really setting the heather alight. But now there's something imminent there that's on the horizon. And even with these initial releases, they're stepping up and saying, we're not there yet, but we're in a state of renaissance and we're confident. Try this. Here's what we're thinking about. Small batch, 1,500 bottles per release. They could have come out and they could have charged us an expensive amount of money for a collectible, but they want to get it, they want to put it in a plain bottle. They want to tell us, this is 60 quid. This is 3 different styles that we want you to open and drink together. We want you to compare, we want you to discuss, and we want you to feedback. This is what whiskey is about. Not collectibles, not limited editions, not specials, none of that. It's exciting. This is the release that inspired me to do this topic tonight, this week. Graham Fraser, Sir Evening Barflies, just back from Loch Lomond, Glen Scotia, tasting Aquavitae. Of course, you're always out there tasting something, doing something. But we know, Graham, that there are multiple Graham Frasers, that there are multiple clones. Dancing Arab is in as well. Good to see you, buddy. Sherry cask available at Nichols and Perks. By the way, I should say, despite the fact that it's sold out in a lot of places right now, it's going to, the remainder of the stock is going to be released, and it's going to go for a wider retail release. You should, if you go through your independent retailers and things like that, I'm not sure about the big online retailers, I'm not sure, but you should be able to track down your favourite style, whether it's the sherry, the toasted, or bourbon. But for 60 quid, it's a nice thing to be involved in, isn't it? Danny Keenan's bought me a dram. Thank you, Danny. Always for your generosity, saying have a dram on me. But if you buy a Bowmore 12, I want a refund. Cheers, Roy. Is that from experience or just what I'm saying, Danny? Hopefully experience, buddy. Thank you very much for your generous dram. And Christoph has bought me a dram as well and saying Slantia. Thank you very much, Christoph. You superstar. Thank you, Danny Keenan. Thank you, Christoph. Cheers to you both. Terrific stuff. Terrific stuff. We can talk about being stuck in the mud. We can talk about going backwards. We can talk about going forwards. In a state of decay or a limbo or renaissance. But what I want to ask the question is, there's no doubt that Tormore is going to have to find ways to sell lots of whiskey to lots of places. So we will see Tormore that's not enthusiast flavoured. It's not going to be maybe pointed at us in the future. Look at Loch Lomond, look at Tomatin, look at Glencairn, look at the one I opened with tonight, look at Fettercairn, look at so many distilleries out there that are proving today in 2025, can't it be both? We understand that not everybody are geeks like us. But if you're going to be part of a renaissance, you have to find a way that you can not only pay lots and lots of money to agencies and marketers good quality stuff that you already make and put it in a place that's accessible to people like us and just get lots of free chatter and Reddit shares and YouTube evangelism and online reviews, people standing up and saying, you know what, this is good stuff. And the word gets out. This is not something to ignore. It's not something to avoid. This is something that's on a path of renaissance. Let's participate. And I think that's fun. And I think it's a privilege. And I'm grateful that there are enough people out there that care. Sean Causer is in, he's saying, as a Speyside, Berry Brothers Balmeric 12-year-old has a wonderful stone fruit peach profile. I don't doubt for a second that Balmeric can harness that perfectly. There's just not enough Balmeric out there. Look, there's plenty for us to get it. If we really want it, we can track it down, no doubt. But Balmeric is probably the only one in the Inverhouse range that doesn't have an official release, right? And unfortunately, two of Inverhouse's products, Annock and Speyburn, is very much in reverse. Excuse me. They're definitely going backwards. Okay, have I ranted enough? The idea of making this a shorter session tonight might have gone right out the window, but you didn't. That's not surprising to anybody in the slightest. There's been a lot of discussion backwards and forwards about the challenge of the difficulty of the quiz at the end. And on reflection, I've realised that I can only put the questions together that I'm in the mood to put. So I guess it's what's going on in my head. It's kind of the way I'm feeling. So I'll make the quiz easier if I'm feeling like the last week's was hard, and vice versa. But a lot of the questions are things that are in my head at any point in time. So we just kind of need to roll with it. And I think that you guys are all okay with that. The quiz at the end tonight, I think, is a challenging one. But I've somehow recognized that and modified it to hopefully make it a little bit more fair so that it can still be good, fun. The purpose of the quiz at the end is always to kind of inspire a little bit, to kind of pique curiosity, to make people think a little bit, all of that stuff. But more than anything, it's almost like a wee letterbox view into what's going on in my head. Gordon Burniston is saying, wish more folk would take inspiration from the plain bottle approach, taking cues from the simplicity of the mid-20th century and let the whiskey do the talking. I feel the exact same. The reason I love the presentation of a lot of Diageo bottlings, honestly, but my favourite's Lagavulin, Colilla as well. Flora and fauna expressions from Diageo, that type of stuff, that type of aesthetic. I love it. Sometimes we can get a little bit too carried away with fussiness and over-gilding. Sometimes I think it's nice just to say, this is whiskey. So if you are hanging around for the quiz at the end, please indulge me tonight. I think you might have a little bit of fun with it. I think it's some of the questions are on topic. Other ones are a bit more out there. Daisy is saying the quiz should be difficult. Speaking as a duchy, complaining is half the fun. I have to say, it's a lot of the fun for me when people are whinging and spitting their dummy out. However, what I don't want to do is people going away in a huff or grumbling or feeling cheated. Christoph is saying, quiz live, a rare treat for me. Bring it on, Aquavite. The lounge will be with me. That's the thing. It's all multiple choice, as always. It is all intended, to be a bit of fun. So if you lean on the other people that know a wee bit more, and you get the correct answer from them, you can still take it and hopefully something that you'll retain, that you've learned a little bit. I'll bring it up just now. 29th of May, how can it be near the end of May already? And yet it is. But it's also near the end of, in fact, it is the end of Thursday. We're already creeping into Friday morning here in the UK. A lot of you guys in Europe are already well into Friday morning. For loads of you in Canada, the US, various other places west of me, you're still on Thursday. Thank you for staying to hang out with me for the quiz at the end. Is it going to be something to celebrate, to have a bit of fun with? Or is it going to be something to make Daisy happy? Something to have a bit of a whinge about? Good luck, everyone. Rick Johnson saying, bring it on, Roy. I'm ready. Fantastic. Question 1. Starting easy, getting harder. Which of the following is a genuine English malt whisky distillery? I've tried very hard to make sure there's no typos in the quiz tonight. Which of the following is a genuine English malt whisky distillery? A, Adnams Copper House. B, Copper King. C, Copper Rivet. Which of those is a legitimate, genuine malt whisky distillery in England? A, Adnams Copper House, B, Copper King, or C, Copper Rivet? Very, very generous drams tonight. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Whiskey Malt Content. I hope I remembered that one, Mark, if you're still in here. Hopefully I managed to thank you for that one as well. As I scroll back up, I realise I didn't give that one a wee like. Ben Demon Hunter is pointing out to everyone that there might be a banana skin in here tonight. Mark Watt is saying, I see what you did there. Good to have you in, Mark. Wonderful to have you hosting us in Campbelltown. Hey, what a spread you put on for us as well. Fantastic fun, great fun. Just brilliant stuff. Arnie's confident he's 0 for 1 already. Come on, where's the optimism, Arnie? Whiskey with Molly saying A, B, and C. Dave the Brave is in, saying C. And Rob Too Slow is saying A, along with Daniel Key. Daniel was down in Campbelltown as well. Good to see you, Daniel. Rob and Daniel agreeing on A there. Bruce Bernard is saying A. Jerry Miller, A. Ginger Genius, A. Whiskey with Molly is now changed and saying O, A, and C. Vasil is in. Good to see you, Vasil. Glagola, it's been a wee while since I've called you or welcomed you here, Vasil. It's nice to have you in tonight. And Oliver Whiskey and Whiskey Veritas is saying it's A. Ben Demon Hunter saying I like monkeys. If you want to just kind of play against the inner chimpanzee, what you can do is just write down A, B, C, or D, C, A, whatever you want to do, and try and just randomize it a bit and see how you score against yourself. Plain random. I can tell you that Adnams Copper House, is absolutely an English distillery. Copper Rivet is also an English distillery. Copper King is not. Cooper King is an English malt distillery. Copper King is not. So A and C, the reason that banana skin's in there tonight is that often question 1 is a freebie and it's all the answers are correct. If there's a banana skin, you need to pay a bit more attention. Question 2, which of the following releases have been released by Holyrood Distillery? Which is a legitimate release from Holyrood Distillery in Edinburgh? A, Court, B, Pitch, C, Field. Should be a wee... No, I was going to say there should be a Dramface logo on this one, but no. The review for this particular whiskey is coming out tomorrow on Dramface. It's a good write-up. It's a debut writer as well. I hope you're all going to check into Dramface in the morning and welcome our new writer who's done a wee interesting write-up on this particular release from Holyrood. But did he do a write-up on Court, Pitch, or Field? Lean on the crowd if you have to. There's no banana skin here. It should be straightforward. Ben Demon Hunter is saying no clue, but he's going to go with B because he's a sheep and he's following the crew. But that's the thing, Ben Demon Hunter. It's how we learn. Angus C is admitting he's going with the crowd. Paul Murray is in. I'll go with the audience here with B. Good to welcome you in, Paul. Have I welcomed you before? Is this the first time? Mark Watt's going with B, as Joe Smith is as well. And Arnie is going, suggesting he's on for a 0 for 2. Come on, Arnie. Just get the guessing wand out. Let's do it. Let's do it. I can tell you that the first release was Arrival, and then they brought out a trio that started with, okay, I've set myself up now, Embra, then Amber, and then Pitch, all to do with pitching yeast, of course, but what I was looking for the latest release from Holyrood is called Pitch. Question 3. Ardnamurchan has just released their new seasonal release. It's called the Midgie. What is new about the 2025 version? What's new about the new Midgie? A, it's the first use of a certain cask type. B, a brand new ABV strength for Ardnamurchan. Or C, the Midgie itself. What's new about the new seasonal release from Ardnamurchan? I think this is really clever. Midgie season tends to kick off in May. That's when we know to kind of take care about where we're going to be, under what conditions and things like that, because midges can turn a lovely scene into hell on earth. That's the truth of it. But Ardnamurchan are bringing out a seasonal release in May every year. I think it's clever. What have they done here for the first time? What's new about this second batch release? It's their first use of a certain cask type, a brand new strength in terms of ABV, or the Midgie itself is new. It leaves a mark on your skin, says Bruce. That's nothing new about that, buddy. It's always been the case. It'll bite you in the eyeball if it can. Rick Johnson is saying C by a barfly. Danny Hebington is saying A and C, and Joe Smith is saying C also. Adrian H is in. Good to see Adrian saying A. Dave the Brave saying C. Whiskey with Molly saying Ruby Port Yum. And Mark Watt is saying Port Casks. I can tell you, Mark, you are correct. But also, anybody that said C, such as Joe Smith, Oliver and Whiskey Veritas, the Midgie itself is also brand new. The ABV is the same as last year's release at 48%. But I want you to look at something here. Here's some artwork. Here's some label artwork showing the Ardnamurchan label. Here's the ABV there at 48%. But this is very different. Last year they collaborated with Smidge, which make Midgie repellent, which was fun. It was humorous. It was funny to see their little character, but it made no sense to I didn't want to think about insect repellent as I was enjoying whiskey. I always said that. This is fantastic. And this little character, this little Midgie, don't know if he has a name yet, or she. It must be a she. It's only the females that bite, right? It must be a she. But this, and you can see it in the foliage here in the background, is indeed designed by one of our very own barflies. And I think that's just fantastic. I think it's wonderful to see. I think that this being a batch release, different every year, playful, seasonal release, coming out in May to mark the Midgie season, it's just more fun and very, very clever, I think, from Ardnamurchan. Wonderful stuff. Congratulations to everybody involved. Those shoes, says Kyle Taylor. Indeed. Indeed. I think it's going to be interesting to see where they take this. It's going to be very playful. Good stuff. If you said A or C, you can give yourself a point. So we move on to question 4. If Brora was to release liquid right now, produced from the new distillery, what is the oldest age it could be? So, of course, there are old stocks of Brora from pre-closure in 1983. I'm not talking about that. I'm speaking about Brora since has been revived. What is the oldest it can possibly be? If new Brora was released, it would be A, just a little under 2 years old, B, almost exactly 4 years old, or C, a smidge over 6 years old. Just a long-winded way of saying when was Brora revived, right? How old would the whiskey be, or the spirit be, the liquid be, if it was released in 2025, in May 2025? Just under 2, Exactly 4, just over 6. Too expensive years old, I guess, says Angus. I have to say, I worry that you could be correct. It would be terrible, right? It would be just terrible if we couldn't participate in that renaissance. Paul Mary's saying, I'll try B, but I don't think C yet. Glenn FC is in. Klaus, good to see you, Glenn. Good to welcome you back. Sugar Kitty is here playing along, suggesting that it's B, almost exactly 4 years old. I'm following Jerry Miller, says Rick Johnson, and he's going for B as well. It looks like the majority of the crowd are going for B. Marco is suggesting A, otherwise it would already be on market. Not. I think they're going to wait, Marco. They're going to wait. 4 out of 4, all the 4s. Oliver is celebrating, very confident here. So whatever Oliver has answered, he's also going for B. Still time to follow the crowd. I've missed a few years, but think B. Mark Watt says B also. Okay, spot on. Yes, almost exactly 4 years old. May 2021, they first started to distill and fill casks in May of 2021. They announced the revival in 2017. It took them 4 years to put it together. We're now 8 years down the road, so almost 4 years the whiskey would be on the dot. Well done, everyone. Question 5 is always a picture question. Going to show you a picture of a distillery here. Bit of a shame, bit of a shabby, drab, poorly looking building. I'm going to ask you, what are we looking at? Where are we when this photo was taken? Are we in A, the Lowlands, B, Islay, or C, Campbelltown? Where are we? Things are looking a wee bit drab here, right? At least when the photo was taken. Glen Govan, says Doodle the Dram. Does look a wee bit like that, doesn't it? Kyle Taylor, Ginger Genius, Daisy, Jerry, Lachlan McKenzie. All of you saying C. Dave the Brave, Bruce Bernard, Dan DVDW. Mark Watt is saying, I know. Joe Smith saying C. Doodle Dram. Arnie's going for C. Rick Johnson's going for C. Ben Damien Hunter's also going for C. Basile, Daniel, Hoyt Hempel, Paul, everybody's going for Campbelltown. What could it possibly be in Campbelltown? A closed distillery, a ghost distillery? Actually, we're looking at Campbelltown and we are looking at Glen Scotia Distillery there. Terrible Photoshop job by me, but nevertheless, got the sign out the way. Let's bring you a bit more up to date, a little bit more recent, but not the most recent picture. Things are looking up now, bit of a renaissance happening at Glen Scotia. And in fact, if you were to take a picture today in the sunshine, it would look even sharper, even brighter than that picture there. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about renaissance. Things being invested in. Look at those windows where they're just bricked up and blacked out. And at least, I mean, they're still not real windows, but somebody spent a bit of money making them at least look a little bit more like windows. Upgraded the gate and the fence and the signage and the branding. And like I say, it's looking even better than that today. So if you answered Glen Scotia, Campbelltown C, you're absolutely spot on. Question 6. There's been another renaissance announced this month, a release from a distillery, which opened in 2011, then it closed again in 2020, only to be reopened again this year in 2025. Where is this renaissance distillery? A, Waco, Texas, in America. B, London, England. C, Valbo, Sweden. Where is this distillery that was born in 2011 but closed in 2020, only to be revived, brought back to life in 2025? Waco, Texas, London, England, Valbo, Sweden. Any of you Dramface readers Maybe you just tune in to Dramface every morning and read the review, browse the reviews over your morning coffee, but there's also a features section and the news section, and sometimes I rely heavily on those sections in order to put the vPub quiz together on a Thursday night. Mark Watt, well, a bit of swagger, saying different spelling. Ben Demon Hunter is saying WoW opened in 2011 and it already shut down once. True story, Ben, true story. Bruce Bernard is saying B, along with Paul, Vasil, Jerry, Mark, Danny, Hoyt, Ben, Dan, Daniel, Joe, almost everybody. Ben Demon Hunter saying not A. Spot on. We are in B, London, England. We're speaking specifically about the London Distillery Company. There's a wee picture of it here. It looks a little bit like the Bimber bottle, like a Daffmel bottle. Yeah, kind of tall shape. This is, I have to say I'm quite interested in this. I think I would like to pick it up when it comes out. It's coming out on the 6th of June. £89. It's going to be a small batch release. All natural specs, all good. And we know that it's going to be from the older stock before it closed. So probably the youngest component in this is going to be a 5-year-old product. No age statement on it, but they're calling it Renaissance literally, so it was absolutely had to be included in tonight's vPub. But it's a different spelling of the word Renaissance, the lesser used spelling. But yeah, London Distillery is back on the scene under the guidance of a new team there, Matt Mackay at the helm here. I have to say I'm excited for it. I hope it's a good one. 89 quid, I think it's worth a punt for me personally. Question 7. Johnny Walker is the undisputed #1 in Scotch whisky sales, selling more globally than any other Scotch whisky brand. But who is number 2? Who comes second to Johnny Walker? Is it A, Dewar's, B, Ballantine's, or C, Chivas Regal? Who is number 2 in the global volume selling list? I should caveat this by saying that it may have changed, but unlikely. But I'm going from 2022 figures. That's the most recent figures that I have, courtesy of the Malt Whisky Yearbook. 89 is not cheap either for a distillery that already went down once. Yeah, there's a lot more cynical stuff out there. London Distillery Company, if you consider, Dan, that it's tiny, the output is tiny. I don't know how much stock that they've accumulated over the years that they were in production. I don't know the true capacity figures, but it's not a big output. So if you consider if this was a small batch from Daffmill, you would be paying in the triple figures easily. I appreciate this is going to be younger than Daffmill. We have to mention that. If it was a Dornoch or something, we would be quite happy to queue up and pay. Mark Watt is saying Mark Mackay is a good guy, so this should be great. There was a vPub a while back that featured Matt Mackay. It was a really good discussion I had with him. Fantastic guy, a true enthusiast as well. I have to say, a whiskey geek at heart. So we put our trust in Matt. That's where I'm putting my trust. I'll spend the 89 quid, and if I can get a hold of it, I don't know how much that is, but I'm interested. Anyway, number 2 to Johnny Walker. It's caught a few of you out here. Some of you are going to slip up. The questions do get harder as the quiz goes on. Number 2 is actually Pernod Ricard's Ballantine's. Ballantine's is the second best Scotch whisky seller globally. Dan is saying B, in case I didn't answer yet. Dan, you did answer, and you got it right. Fantastic. Question 8. Which of these Once Upon a Time Flora and Fauna distilleries, after a false start, went from a handful of single malt bottle sales to over 1 million in the 2020s? So this is in the space of about 12 years, if we talk about Renaissance, for very different reasons in our theme tonight. And they had a few false starts and clumsy releases along the way, but this Once Upon a Time Flora and Fauna distillery went from just, a couple of thousand cases to over 1 million today. I'm speaking about A, Mortlach, B, Royal Brackla, C, Aberfeldy. No banana skins here. There's only one Diageo distillery in the lineup there, along with Royal Brackla, Aberfeldy, owned by Pernod Ricard, and Dewar's. But they were all, at one point in time, owned by DCL, and they were all Flora and Fauna releases at one point in time. But I'm asking you, which one has been a super success, despite some false starts, and now selling over 1 million bottles today? Largely ignored by us, I have to say, not as a distillery, but as a brand. Don't often see Valentine's here in Chicago, says Hoyt. Fall in the crowd, switching to C. Everybody's going with C. All three have been Flora and Fauna, Mark. You're absolutely spot on. All three have been Flora and Fauna. And what I'm trying to get you to think about is something that sold a handful of products, had a failed relaunch, and then had to rejig the relaunch in order to make it a success, and now sells over 1 million bottles. Is now considered a big success. I can tell you I'm going to give a lot of you a chance to change your minds if you would like. Ben Demon Hunter is just admitting that he doesn't know. Fantastic. Daniel Key is switching to A. Daisy is saying so A. Paul Murray is saying I'll change to A. A back to A. Whiskey with Molly's sticking with C. Lagler McKenzie is saying A, switchy. Ginger Genius is saying A it is. Okay, go on A. Rick Johnson, okay, switch to A. I can tell you that Aberfeldy is already pretty strong seller globally, especially in markets such as France. Royal Brackla is a pretty small concern, pretty small sales generally. Mortlach was always a 16-year-old Flora and Fauna. They ran out of the ability to support that, especially at such a mature age. So they switched it. They brought out a non-age statement at ridiculous price, an 18-year-old at an even more ridiculous price, and it just sat gathering dust. But then they rebranded again, and they brought something out that was much more accessible. The 12-year-old, the 16-year-old, and they did very, very well, apparently. I've bought one or two over the years and was pretty ambivalent about them, but nevertheless, the global market decided it was a success. So I'm talking about Mortlach. After a few fits and starts, eventually had quite a success. Hardly top 10, hardly top 20, but doing okay. So if you answered A, that's the once Flora and Fauna distillery that's now something of a success. Question 9, and the asshats are going to start. Okay, there's 2 asshats this week. Question 9's a bit of an asshat, and question 10 is a typical asshat. Question 9 is, in Scotch malt production, we have 2 roses, Rose Isle, Rose Bank, 2 Royals, Royal Brackla, Royal Lochnagar, you get the thing, 2 Isles, but how many inches? How many inches do we have in Scotch malt whiskey production? We have just 1 inch. We have 2 inches. C, 3, but only if you allow measuring the inch anywhere in the name. So Rose is at the beginning of Rose Isle and Rose Bank. A Royal is at the beginning of Royal Lochnagar and Royal Brackla. And Isles is at the beginning of Isle of Rassay, Isle of Harris. But inches, we either have just 1 inch distillery, we have 2 inch distilleries, or 3 inch distilleries. You guys are smart. Inchmurrin is obvious. What else? Inchmurrin is not a distillery, Marco. It is a brand. Sorry, buddy. It's a peach to come up with Inchmurrin, but it's not actually a distillery. It's not a producer. It's a brand. But like Hazelburn was once upon a time a distillery, no longer. Brilliant. You just so smart. Okay, sometimes I think I can catch you out, and other times I just can't catch you out. Well done, everyone. Gerhard Grassbook is in, saying C, going with 3. And Gerhard, nice to welcome you here, and you're absolutely right. Everybody got this. Glen Kinchy is the hidden one here. However, literally, if we were to frame it the same way as Rose Isle and Rosebank and Royal Lochnagar, Royal Bracklet, if we were to do the same thing, it would be Inchdairney and Inchgower. So you could give yourself a point if you answered B. Absolutely, I wouldn't have any truck with that whatsoever. The right answer, though, was obviously Inchdairney, Inchgower, and Glen Kinchy. Bit of ass hattery as we go into the ass hat at the end. Who's on a 9 out of 9 as well? Paul Marrie's on a 9, fantastic. Kel Taylor and Lachlan on Lachlan's on 9 out of 8, fantastic work there, buddy. Kel's on an 8, Dan is on a 9, Jerry Miller on a 9, along with Dave the Brave, Ginger Genius, Bruce Bernard. Ginger Genius is on 8, Too Slow's on 8, Lachlan's on 9. So lots of 9s. Oliver on a 9 as well. Rick Johnson's on a 9. Daniel Key's on a 9. Okay. Now to fumble on the 10th, says Paul Marrie. Keep the faith, keep the faith. It is an ass hat, but it's an achievable ass hat tonight for reasons that will be revealed. Okay, here's the ass hat at the end. The oldest official Daft Mill release to date has been a 15-year-old. It's an annual release. How many have we seen? How many annual releases of Daft Mill 15 have we had to date? A, about the same as the number of B distilleries that are located on the Isle of Islay. Is it about the same as the number of B distilleries located in the Lowlands? Or is it C, the same as the number of B distilleries located in Speyside? This is where everybody decides that they're never going to tune into the vPub ever again. The ass hattery is just rude, it's ridiculous, it's silly, but it should genuinely be something that, you can crunch mentally, you can maybe throw a dart, have a bit of luck at it. It needs knowledge, it needs good fortune, it needs leaning on your peers, it needs all of it. Kept thinking Chininic should have an inch in it also, almost. It kind of does in an anagram form, right? Well done, Mark. Well done. Chininic, yeah. I'll stick with B, but I'm honestly not sure, says Paul Marrie. Doodle the dram. Arnie wants a handicap system in place. Mark Watt, Whiskey with Molly should always start on -2 to keep it fair. And I have to say, same should go for probably Graham Fraser as well. However, what I will say is that how would they ever get to 10 if they're starting on a -2? Maybe the handicap should be that you, Arnie, get to start on 2 to begin with. The whole point is to be silly, says Ben Demon Hunter. I love it, buddy. I love it. Angus says, I think it's only 2 annual releases, more other 15-year-old releases, but not the annual ones. Danny Heaventon is saying this, I'll go C. Dan is saying, no clue, I'm going to go C and guess C2. I'm on an 8 out of 9, says Doodle the Tram. He's so, yeah, he needed a bit of help tonight. Fair play to you, Ben. Fair play to you. Okay, I can tell you that the number of B distilleries located in Speyside is 6 B distilleries. Number of B distilleries located in the Lowlands is 3. Let's see if I can remember them. Bladnoch, Borders, and Bonington. There we go. A, B distilleries located on Islay, Bruichladdich, Bowmore, and Bunnahabhain is also 3. So if you said A or B tonight, I'm being super generous. The number of 15-year-old Daft Mills that have been released 2022, 2023, and 2024, numbers 3. So if you said A or B, you had a chance of passing the ass hat tonight. 9 out of 10 for Whiskey with Molly. Come on. Lachlan McKenzie on a 9. Dan David say no on a 9. Did you go for C? James Morgan is in. Good to see you, James. A for 3. Daisy managed a 10 out of 10. Superb, Daisy. Congratulations to you. Sugar Kitty swoops in with a 10. Dave the Brave swoops in for a 10 along with Oliver and Whiskey Veritas. Bruce Bernard, Rick Johnson. I'm looking for the emoji. Ben Demon Hunter, 10 out of 10, and boom goes the dynamite. Fantastic. Dagnamit says Danny Hebbington back on terra firma tonight, but only manages a 9 out of 10. Listen, Danny, it's a fantastic comeback, buddy. Paul Murray, wow, 10 out of 10 after changing my answer once and stealing an answer off the crowd once too. You played it perfectly, Paul. You nailed it. Bruce Bernard celebrating a 10. Facile got an excellent 9 along with Joe Smith. 4 out of 10 for Doodle the Tram saying good night. Arnie, keep coming back, big guy, keep coming back. You learn by osmosis. Jerry's a 9 out of 10. Done and by the ass hat. Story of my life, says Jerry. Gerhard is saying 9 out of 10 and I'm happy. That's the spirit that we need, Gerhard. Thank you, buddy. Both I and the chimp win, says Hoyt. So he's been playing against his chimpanzee tonight. And Daniel Key's celebrating a 10 along with you were good to us tonight, says Mark. 10 out of 10. Fantastic, everybody. Thank you very much for being pragmatic and not having too much of a huff if you did slip up at the ass hat or any other of the questions tonight. It's always meant to just close out the vPub with a wee bit of fun. I think it's fun to be in whiskey right now. We're talking about there being a lull, a kind of whiskey lull, and there is a slowdown in demand globally for various global reasons, lots of things outside of our control. But I have to tell you, after coming back from Campbelltown last week, in the enthusiasts segment, the whiskey that we enjoy, the stuff that we love, there is no lull. There is no slowdown. The people that always loved whiskey are still in there because we still love whiskey. The people that were in there to make money, the people that were in there just to be kind of casual and fashionable, I don't know, the fad people, they've come and they've gone. But the hardcore, the whiskey lovers, are still there. And we've always got an outstretched hand to welcome in more whiskey fans in the future, to build a future renaissance for everything that we enjoy about whiskey. I love it. I absolutely adore it. And I'm feeling more privileged than ever to be part of it. And things like the distilleries and the direction that they're going in that I've shared with you tonight is something to raise a glass and be grateful for and be happy about. Dan is saying regular prices aren't coming down yet. Yes, they are, Dan. They are, believe me. But discounts are slowly increasing, so there is hope. Lachlan is saying, thanks, Roy Aquavite, and folks have a good evening, and tata for now. Thank you, Lachlan. Adrian is saying, well said, Aquavite. And Daisy is saying, thank you, Roy, for another great vPub. Good night, everyone else. See you next week on that. Daisy, I'm going to raise a glass of this Tormore. This is the lighter one. This is the bourbon cask one. I'm going to thank you all for joining me tonight. I look forward to hanging out with you at the start of June. Can you believe it's June already next week? But until then, I'll remind you all that you're very dearly loved. Good night, everyone. Sláinte mhath. Cheers.